It's 7 p.m. and I would like to call this meeting to order. While this meeting is being held in person, we are also offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom if preferred. Instructions on how to participate virtually are included in the City Council calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Adrian Chomposi. Here. Boltinghouse.
Here.
Loudon.
Here.
Ryard.
Here.
Crane.
Here.
Schmidt.
Here.
Carpenter Davis.
Here.
Shosse.
Here.
All right, we have two public hearings on our agenda this evening. First, I will officially open the budget and revenue neutral rate public hearing for the City of Mission, Rock Creek Drainage District 1, and Rock Creek Drainage District 2 for consideration of the 2025 budgets as required by KSA 79-2929 and KSA 79-2988. We will hear first from our City Administrator, Laura Smith. Following her presentation, if any members of the public would like to make a comment on the items listed for public hearing with regard to the 2025 budgets or the intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate, that would be the time after her presentation. Laura, do you want to come up?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. We are at the final stage in adoption of our annual budget for 2025. It's been a journey really since about March, as we've kind of traveled through and looked at goals, objectives, priorities to come up with a final recommended budget, which we're pleased to present to you this evening. I do have a PowerPoint presentation, which you will be familiar with. We shared this at the community dialogue. So I will move through this relatively quickly. I know we do have several in the audience, so I'll kind of make sure to hit those high points, and we can certainly make this presentation available to those. This first slide is just really an introduction for those who've seen the presentation of our mayor and city council members. Next slide is how we're structured with our operating departments and appointed officials and elected officials and the things that we do contractually. So why do we budget? It's our opportunity to really identify the priorities, goals, and objectives, and look at the revenue mix necessary to support the service delivery and infrastructure investment that are tied to those things. It helps us communicate our priorities with the public. It helps us plan and project future needs and challenges, and it is in fact required by state statute. Next, we think about where do those priorities, goals, and objectives come from? And they really come from a variety of sources feeding into the annual budget process, but they're ongoing throughout the course of the year. So they come from citizens, the city council, our boards and commissions, staff, and they really come through surveys that we use, social media feedback, public meetings, regional programs and priorities, best practices, networking, and a variety of meetings and retreats. And so all of those things sort of get thrown into the mix and at the end result in our final annual budget. So what does the budget really pay for? It pays for our basic operations. So all of our operating departments, police, public works, parks and recreation, administration. It pays for community priorities, whether that's investment in streets, our parks, stormwater, other things. It helps us, again, with infrastructure maintenance. And then it helps us, we maintain a reserve fund or a rainy day fund so that we are able to respond appropriately to upturns or downturns in the economy without having to make major decisions in a potential time of uncertainty. As stewards of the public resources, we really continually seek an appropriate balance between revenues and expenses. So every year during the annual budget process, we look at opportunities to reduce our expenses. We look at delaying purchases or projects. We look at privatizing or outsourcing services, discontinuing services or programs. We also look at how can we take advantage or leverage grants or other people's money to assist us in accomplishing our goals. We look at increases in fees and charges. We benchmark ourselves against other entities in the metropolitan area. And we have the potential to increase taxes, whether that's a sales tax which are sales taxes, which are voter approved, or property taxes, and that's a mill levy that's set by the city council. So at the end of the day, just like with our budgets at home, it's really all a matter of time and money. And so what do we need to consider as we put that budget together? What's the quality of life for our residents? What are the impacts to service delivery for any cuts that we might be considering? Have there been changes in federal, state, or local laws which impact the budget? Do we have unanticipated events? Last year, we dealt with a pretty significant storm event. And the council decided to do a curbside pickup. And we had about $155,000+ of unbudgeted, unanticipated expenses. And then we look at the long-term sustainability of our budget and how do we balance that, and how, again, do we minimize peaks and valleys as we go through the process each year. I'm going to touch briefly on our general fund for 2025. Our general fund is our largest fund of the 19+ funds that the city maintains as a part of our annual budget. It covers all of our operating departments and services and some limited capital expenses, typically vehicles or equipment. It is where we reserve or maintain our reserve funds, and we build it conservatively. So our fiscal year aligns with the calendar year. And so as we know, we're in August. We have several months. There's a lot that can happen between now and the start of the fiscal year. So we build our budgets conservatively, both from revenue and expense perspective. And then we continually monitor that throughout the course of the year. And the general fund typically has a one-year focus, both for revenues and expenses. In the 2025 general fund budget, we're estimating revenues of $16.25 million. That's about a 7% increase over our 2024 estimated. 88% of those revenues come from 5 sources: property taxes, sales and use taxes, franchise fees, parks and recreation revenues, and fines and forfeitures. As we built the 2025 budget, sales and use tax performance remains fairly consistent, just a little bit of modest growth. We're continuing to see excellent recovery in community center revenues, which were dramatically impacted for about 3 years by the pandemic. And this revenues for 2025 reflect maintenance of the mill levy at 18.497 mills. Property taxes. When we look at property tax revenues, it's really important for us to take a long-term view. The average growth in assessed valuation in Mission over the last 5 years has been about 7%, most of that in our residential, both single and multifamily properties. In the last 5 years, we have experienced a high of 11%, which was 2023, and a low of 4%, which happens to be the projections going into the 2025 budget. 1 mill is anticipated to generate about $223,000 worth of revenue in our 2025 budget. City Council may recall, after a lot of deliberation and consideration last year, you did vote to increase the mill levy. We had seen the mill levy sort of pull back by about the amount that we increased it back to, and we were really looking at long-term, again, sustainability of the overall budget. But there's no increase proposed for this year, although we are recommending to exceed our revenue neutral rate for the 2024 tax year or 2025 budget. Revenue neutral is a kind of a theory or philosophy that has really come into play in the last several years based on legislation that was passed. And the revenue neutral rate really means that a government would collect the same property tax revenues in, for example, in 2025 as we collected in 2024. So that provides no allowance for CPI growth, increasing labor or commodity costs, or for really any growth attributable to new construction. So a revenue neutral philosophy requires that we provide the same level of services at last year's prices. And so that's a challenge that I think every entity faces. And I think because we've been conservative, it's been important to this council to maintain that current mill rate, not increase it, but maintain it. And that is the recommendation that the 2025 budget was built on. So the mill rate is recommended to be 18.497 mills, as I mentioned. The revenue neutral rate was calculated at 17.719 mils. Mill levy considerations for the this should be 25 budget. And this is as we kind of looked at last year when we made the decision to increase the mill. We went back to data that was collected through the Direction Finder survey process. And if we were investing in the services that our residents indicated were priorities, how much would they be willing to pay? And I didn't mention, we do transfer, which is somewhat unique. We transfer approximately 40% of those property tax revenues out of the general fund and into our capital improvement fund for street maintenance, which consistently for about the last 15 years has been the highest priority for our residents. Sales tax revenues, really the largest revenue stream in between what's collected and levied by the city and our portion of county sales taxes. That is our largest revenue stream in any fiscal year. Sales and use tax performance, both city and county, remains fairly consistent. And our growth for 2025 is conservative. City sales tax at about 2%, use tax at 5%, and county sales and use very similar. Parks and Recreation revenues, primarily our focus here is at the Powell Community Center. In 2023, the council approved and adopted a feasibility study that had been conducted looking at a long-term goal of achieving a 70% cost recovery at the community center. This year, the facility celebrates its 25th anniversary. And the feasibility study suggested that recovery would be possible over a 2 to 3 year period. We're edging closer to that in a shorter period of time, and we hope that trend will continue. And we added a business manager's position to the Parks and Recreation Department in July of this year to assist in sort of data collection and analysis to manage the performance factors that came out of the feasibility study in that business plan. Franchise fees and fines and forfeiture. So franchise receipts are 5% of gross receipts that are collected on all utilities, 2% for Google broadband services. Those can obviously be impacted by rate increases by the various utility providers, and particularly by weather, hot summers, cold winters, or vice versa. And so we're really seeing and predicting fairly minimal growth and increase in that. Fines and forfeitures are those things that result from traffic code or other municipal ordinance violations. Those are impacted by staffing levels in the police department, which we, like most other jurisdictions, have struggled in recent years to stay fully staffed. But we are seeing recovery in that area. As we look at general fund expenses, every year we evaluate the options to bring the overall budget into balance. We look at the opportunity to eliminate or combine positions or hold a position vacant intentionally. We look at delaying the purchase of capital equipment, eliminating or reducing specific budget line items. We do go through a specific line item review of the general fund budget with each department as a team. And we look at, again, privatizing or outsourcing services to achieve efficiencies or economies of scale. So we budget in 4 categories in the general fund: personnel, contractual services, commodities, and capital. We also transfer, as I mentioned, a significant portion of the property tax revenues out for street maintenance. And then we also subsidize a portion of the residential trash recycling, yard waste, and bulky item collection contract each year. So those transfers out to other funds are also counted as expenditures. In 2025, our general fund expenditures by function, Public Works is the largest, followed by Parks and Recreation, Public Safety, and then Administration, which includes general overhead, the legislative budget, and our administrative department. Expenses in the general fund are 14.42 million. So if you'll remember, 16.25 in revenue, 14.42 in expenses. And even though expenses are a 4% increase over the 2024 estimated, our revenues still exceed what our projected expenses will be. No surprise that personnel is the largest expense in our general fund category. It's about 9.6 million of that 14.4 million in 2025. Personnel costs in 2025 are estimated to be about 59% of the general fund budget expenditures. Benchmark target is typically 60 to 65%, so we are within that range. We continue to see competition from both public and private sector, and that's really presenting challenges in recruiting and retaining employees. We have no changes to personnel included in the 2025 budget. And the 2024 budget, we actually reduced our full-time personnel by 1. So we've been pretty consistent, really, I would say, for about the last 10 years. This next slide really just looks at an expense comparison from 2024 to 2025 in all of those major categories. Personnel costs are experiencing about an 8% increase, again, driven, we budget as if we are fully staffed. And so there are typically savings that are realized at the end of each year. But that includes salaries, all of our benefit costs, workers' compensation, all of those kinds of things. Contractual expenses are maintained at essentially the same level as in the 2024 budget. Commodities are increasing by about 8%, driven primarily by fuel and just the increasing cost of goods and services. Just like all of us at home, we're experiencing those same price increases in the things that we do as a city. Capital outlay is actually decreasing in 2025, and that's primarily because we had a significant one-time expenditure for automated license plate readers that were secured for the police department through a Department of Justice grant, and actually covered 100% of that project. The only debt service that we carry in the general fund is for our facility conservation improvements. So those were the efficiencies that were implemented at the community center and city hall, which have resulted in energy savings overall. And then again, the transfers increase with funds going to equipment reserve and replacement fund. Each year, we also look at supplemental requests, and again, wish lists each year typically exceed what we have the ability to fund. So we evaluate those based on department needs, again, council and community priorities, goals, objectives, and the resources that are available. So we can fund supplemental requests out of any of the city's funds, including the general fund, equipment reserve and replacement, MCBB fund, stormwater utility fund, et cetera. And we evaluate those requests against the key performance areas, as well as things like we look at liability issues, we look at operational efficiencies, we look at council priorities, we look at one-time versus ongoing expenditures. There's several high priority supplemental requests, which are not currently funded in the 2025 budget, and they will continue to be evaluated throughout the remainder of 2024 and 25. General fund reserves, as I mentioned, that's where we carry that rainy day fund. The Government Finance Officers Association recommends no less than 2 months of operating expenses maintained in reserves. City Council here in Mission actually has a policy of maintaining 25% of our annual general fund revenues. And really, again, that's designed to mitigate any revenue shortfalls, unanticipated expenditures, and to help ensure those stable tax rates. We can use fund balance to balance the budget or to help fund unanticipated or unique expenses. And so that's always a balancing act. How much is too much? And you'll see that we are at or exceeding that 25% fund balance goal. We have excluded in our fund balance calculations one-time revenues. So for example, we received about $1.5 million in ARPA funds, or when we have, as I mentioned, the license plate reader grant, because those are expenditures in and out typically in the same year. And so it overinflates our reserves. And because I think we budget so conservatively, we try to make as many dollars available for those priorities as we can. I mentioned one of the things we look at each year in the budget process is how do we take advantage of other people's money? I think we've been very successful in that. It helps us to really stretch the dollars from our taxpayers. And between 20 and 2023, we have successfully leveraged over $11 million in federal, state, and county funds. And we anticipate an additional $4 to $5 million in the 2025 and 2026 budget. Next, we'll turn our attention to the Capital Improvement Fund, which is a 5-year look at our major infrastructure projects. Really, it comes in a variety of categories: streets, stormwater, parks, public buildings and facilities, technology, vehicles and equipment. And we kind of look at where are we today, what are the threats and opportunities in each of those categories, and then we're constantly sort of rebalancing and reevaluating priorities. Mission has historically used dedicated revenue streams, stormwater, streets, and parks and recreation to fund capital projects in each of those areas, primarily because I think it is very transparent for our residents and businesses to understand where those dollars are going. The majority of the debt that we carry in the city is carried in the capital improvement funds. And this slide just really lists the total balance. At the end of 2025, we'll have about $11.2 million outstanding, and you can kind of see the amounts. The majority of that is still in stormwater improvements that have been made, totaling really over about $30 million in the last 10 to 15 years. And then very quickly, in each of the 3 major program areas, on the revenue side, we assess a stormwater utility fee on all developed parcels in the city. That generates about $2.6 million in revenues annually. Again, used and dedicated for debt service, but also other stormwater projects throughout the community. This year, we have been able, in fact, we're recently wrapping up several localized neighborhood drainage level stormwater projects. And it's been really wonderful to have the flexibility in that stormwater utility fund to be able to tackle those. I believe on the council's agenda tonight, you're approving design for 2 more of those projects. On the street revenue side, we get a gas tax distribution, a portion of gas tax revenues from the state. We have a dedicated 3/8 cent retail sales tax that voters renewed in 2021. And then again, we dedicate the general fund mills for street repair and maintenance. So we have about $2.9 million in local revenues and other revenues of about $1.26 million. On the Parks and Recreation side, we have 3/8 cent retail sales tax dedicated for Parks and Recreation, and then 1/3 of the alcohol tax that comes in and distributed by the state. So about $1.3 million in parks annually. In the 2025 budget, we're expecting to proceed with stormwater projects, the design of the Rock Creek Channel from Outlook to Woodson. Overall, that will be about a $9.6 million project with construction coming in 2026, looking at a stormwater master plan, about $450,000 in those localized or neighborhood drainage level projects and stormwater debt service. On the street side, we have about almost $5.5 million of projects with the annual residential street maintenance program, and the council tries to dedicate $2 million of street revenues each year to that program. We have 63rd Street from Road and All is our county assisted road project for 2025. We have design right-of-way easement acquisition for Johnson Drive. We're slated for construction of that section Lamar to Metcalf in 2026. Miscellaneous repairs and striping. And then on the Parks and Recreation side, Rock Creek Trail resurfacing, a locker room remodel at the community center, and a pool liner resurfacing and debt service. And as you've seen, continued investment in our outdoor parks, and we'll be wrapping up. We're sort of catching our breath. We've been through, by the time we get to the end of this year, we will have been through Mohawk Phase 1 and Phase 2 and waterworks improvements. And so now we sort of take a breath and look at the next round as we look at Broadmoor, Streamway, and Anderson Park. Other fund highlights for 2025 and our Mission Convention and Visitors Bureau fund, which is where we account for transient guest tax revenues from the one hotel that we have in town. Those funds are used primarily to support our Mission magazine and to fund various sort of business support programs throughout the course of the year. In the special alcohol fund, we bring in again, another 1/3 of the alcohol tax, about $140,000. We dedicate $65,000 of that to the Drug and Alcoholism Council that is managed by United Community Services, and they award a series of grants. And then about $90,000 of that supports our mental health co-responder program, which has been an excellent addition and support for our residents and for our police officers. Solid Waste Utility Fund is where we account for the residential trash recycling program. The resident rate is proposed to stay the same for 2025, even though we're experiencing about a 3% increase in the contract overall. And the city pays, again, that balance subsidizes that from the general fund. And then the TIF and CID funds are separate funds that are established to account for specific redevelopment projects and redevelopment agreements that we have. Those distributions are controlled by the development agreements, and we do have several in place at this time. Several years ago, the governing body established 5 key performance areas, which reflect top priorities that were again identified through citizen surveys and other methods. We developed outcome statements for each of those. And each year, as we go through the annual budget process, we try to tie our expenditures to those key performance areas. And so those key performance areas include infrastructure, economic development, sustainability, parks and recreation, and municipal operations. I won't go through all of the detail, but infrastructure has historically, the investment in infrastructure has historically been our largest expenditure category, as we might expect. We're anticipating spending a total of about $11 million on infrastructure investments in 2025. Parks and Recreation, our 2025 investment is about 1.7, almost 1.8 million. In municipal operations, this does not include that $9.6 million of salaries in the general fund. This is really more focused on sort of our investment, and that's about $882,000. Sustainability, the 2025 investment is about $425,000. That includes preservation and enhancement of the tree canopy, a business recycling program, the FCIP improvements, and several other things. And then economic development, our investment is about $135,000. So that's really kind of the summation of our 2025 budget. As I think as the council, again, we'll have an opportunity if there's anyone, remaining council questions or anybody in the public who might have questions, we'll be happy to answer those. At the conclusion of the public hearing, because the council has signaled the intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate, you'll have 3 resolutions that you will consider. I didn't touch on the drain. So City of Mission budget, and then Rock Creek Drainage District number 1, which encompasses the Gateway site, and Rock Creek Drainage District number 2, which essentially follows the creek channel from Roland Drive to Lamar. Those are separate taxing entities or taxing jurisdictions. The governing body, City Council, is the governing body of those drainage district boards. So you set the mill levies for those as well. So with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Yeah, so first we'll go ahead and open it up for our public comment. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand but stay seated and we will call on you to come to the lectern to make your comments. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also, be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. If I need to confirm something that may have been difficult to hear, I will ask for clarification. So we'll start with anyone in the room tonight. If you would like to make public comment on these budget items, please raise your hand. Yeah, front row, if you want to come up to the lectern. State your name and city of residence.
Hello, my name is Dale Weathered. I live in Mission, Kansas. And this is a question for the administrator. With regard to the franchise tax, I noticed as I was reading preparatory to this meeting that it is levied on, for example, Google for their broadband services. But I did not see whether there are other services, because I know, for example, I am a Google subscriber. Have we explored the opportunity for revenue for other services that they provide in our network, not just Google, but other providers of similar nature?
Yes, and I can come to the podium or I can answer from here.
From
whatever.
there is
But,
fine.
yes, so that franchise fee is levied on electric, gas, video, telecommunications, and broadband services.
All right. And I did forget to give our reminder that for each item, public comment, we will limit to 3 minutes. So we'll let you know on that. Do we have any other audience members who would like to comment tonight? Yes, Kim, then John?
Hi, Kim Donaway. I'm a Mission resident. So one question is this PowerPoint available to the public before council meeting? How and when? So we can look at it prior to council, so we can actually make good comments, so we can see it before. So I'd like to know that. Number two, since they mentioned it, we're having the reconstruction, which is great for Johnson Drive between Lamar and Metcalf. The piece I want to bring up, because they talked about bringing in a crosswalk so that rigs, they can cross over. I'd like to see those designs first, because I've watched several cities, when they put them in the wrong place. And then I see them tearing out at residents' expense and having to remove them a few feet either way. So I'd like to see that prior to anything being approved, because I've seen a lot of cities in the metro put the crosswalks at the wrong place, and it really creates dangerous situations. That's from experience of my work. And then the other is the list of TIF projects that are currently ongoing on the books that we are funding. All of the projects, I'd like to know if we have a complete list that the public can see, how much revenue that's coming from the residents and being diverted from general obligation, sales tax, property tax, that is still going to them for how many years? And then what the new ones that all these developers want. I'd like to see that list too. And I think that would give the residents a really better idea how much money is being taken away from us, because y'all want to raise our taxes and give it to the others. So that's a request, and if it's possible.
Let me address a couple of things. We can certainly make this PowerPoint available. It's the same PowerPoint that was available at the July 17th Community Dialogue. It was not included in the packet, but all of the materials and charts and graphs that went into this PowerPoint presentation were included in a narrative memo and the line item budgets in the packet for this evening's meeting. So we can certainly make this PowerPoint available, but all of the same information
Yeah, I just didn't see it earlier.
was in the packet.
Thank you.
And Laura, that line item budget information does include those current TIF projects as well.
Not
correct?
all of them, because we
It's
don't
for
legally
their
have to
funds.
budget the TIF funds. And so it's always a little bit of a gamble because of the timing and all of that. But we can certainly pull together some information on the TIF projects, where they are in the life cycle of those TIFs and the distributions that have been made to date.
And then the road.
Oh, the regs.
Crossing.
Yes, I did notice. So we have not authorized, no, we are currently working on design of that. So I did note that you wanted to look at placement of the rigs.
Yes, and that's mainly because
crosswalk.
I'm all over all the cities, 250-mile radius, and I see a lot of this going on because it benefits communities to be able to safely cross. And that's a really high racetrack up there, and with the turnings and that. So thank you.
Mhm.
All right, John, I think I saw your hand up next.
Hi, good evening. It's John Arnett, a resident of Mission. I just want to stand in support of the budget overall, more specifically the mill levy, because I realize and understand that the mill levy remains the same this year as in last year. And knowing prior to that, there was an increase last year prior from the years previous to that. But I know the council has practiced due diligence in all the development of the mill levy itself, the establishment of the mill levy. Frankly, I would admit that I haven't watched as closely or followed as closely the budget development as I have in the past, but I have read and watched and listened to discussions. So I know the council practices due diligence. And I know the staff looks for revenue sources or uses revenue sources to the best of the city's ability, if you will. And I know a mill levy that remains the same does not mean necessarily a flat tax liability as a resident, because the city's mill levy is only part of the county. But raising the mill levy does realize increased revenue for the city. So as a resident, I understand that my tax liability is going to be more than last year, but the city doesn't realize will realize more than last year, but not exceedingly amount, not over what do I want to say? Not over excessive. Thank you very much for the vocabulary assistance. Excessive amount, because that can be done by an increase in the mill levy. So I appreciate, again, just appreciate the maintaining the mill levy to the amount it is, because it makes a difference as a resident. Thanks.
Thank you. I think I saw Joe's hand next.
Hello, my name is Joe Donaway. I am also a resident of Mission, Kansas. My request is, if we are going to continue to raise the mill levy, keep it the same as it was last year, that what we do is not give away any more property tax abatements or sales tax abatements to large developers, especially if we are unable to properly forecast the potential liability that these large projects come with. Just the other night, I saw a couple of officers parked outside of the Target having a talk with, I believe, an employee. I don't know who it was. I know that for every hour, half hour, each of those officers sat there, there was a cost to the city. I know that all of the property tax and sales tax abatements that we've given to that Target don't cover those miscellaneous unforecasted costs. So moving forward, if we are going to continue to raise property taxes, we shouldn't give away property tax abatements or sales tax abatements to these large developers, because I don't think that we are recovering the actual amount of money we're spending on these ancillary services, such as emergency services, whether that's health or police, et cetera, or even road usage, that these developers and these projects are incurring. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other hands from our in-person group tonight? Seeing none, do we have any online comment, Justin? All right. Seeing no further public comment, I will close the public hearing. In accordance with state statute, the city council must now consider resolutions confirming its intent to exceed the revenue neutral rates for the 2025 budget for the city of Mission, Rock Creek Drainage District 1, and Rock Creek Drainage District 2. First, we will consider the resolution for the city of Mission's 2025 budget. I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move the city council approve the resolution levying a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate for the city of Mission's 2025 budget.
Second.
Motion and a second. Robin, will you please call the roll?
Hayden Champosi.
Aye.
Ryard.
Aye.
Loudon.
Aye.
Josie.
Aye.
House.
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Pring.
Aye.
Schmid.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Right, next we will consider the resolution for Rock Creek Drainage District Number 1 for the 2025 budget. I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move the city council approve the resolution levying a property tax exceeding the revenue neutral rate for the Rock Creek Drainage District Number 1's 2025 budget.
Second.
Right, motion and a second. Any council comment or questions? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Ryard.
Aye.
Hayden Champosi.
Aye.
Schmid.
Aye.
House.
Aye.
Josie.
Aye.
Loudon.
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Pring.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And then next we will consider the resolution for Rock Creek Drainage District Number 2 for the 2025 budget. I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move the city council approve the resolution levying a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate for the Rock Creek Drainage District Number 2's 2025 budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any council questions or comments? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Hayden Chomposi.
Aye.
Josie,
Aye.
Loudon.
Aye.
Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Ryard.
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Pring.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Our second public hearing tonight is related to the Lanes at Mission Bowl Phase 2 TIF redevelopment project plan and split of the TIF District Number 3B. First, we'll hear from the city administrator, Laura Smith, then the developer, then the city's financial advisor and bond counsel. So full team on this one. And then following the presentations, we will move into our public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to just touch, I think Mr. Arnett articulated it, but revenue neutral and a raise in the mill, while it is a higher mill levy, again, the language can be a little bit confusing sometimes. And certainly happy to always answer any additional questions about that. And I think it's important to note, because we're going to talk about it here in this next series of presentations, that as the city council or the city councils that I've been involved with has considered any request for incentives, whether that be a tax abatement or a tax increment financing incentive, that there has been a very careful consideration and deliberation about the benefits coming back to the city with each of those projects. And I did just want to note that the target has not received incentives, at least in my tenure here, for that. I think early on, there were some tax dollars that were given back and they were balanced with that. Okay. This evening, we're here to talk about the Phase 2 of the Lanes at Mission Bowl project. As the mayor mentioned, I'll introduce our developer, Mr. Banks Floodman with Sunflower Development. He'll give kind of a brief presentation on the project, just so everybody's kind of reminded of what Phase 2 is all about. And then we'll look to a brief presentation from our financial advisor, Mr. Bruce Kimmel of Ellers, and then Mr. Kevin Wimpy with Gilmore and Bell, who's the city's bond counsel. Again, I think we are not looking for the council to take any action this evening, so we'll make the presentations. And I believe the expectation is to continue the public hearing to your September meeting, because the materials were not finalized in time for us to discuss those in depth at your August committee meeting. So with that, I will invite Mr. Floodman, who I'm assuming is here. Yep. I didn't turn around to give his presentation.
Good to see everybody again. I always enjoy coming back, which seems to be every day right now. So maybe I'll start with a little update on the Phase 1. We're planning to move residents in pending final TCO within the next, I would say, 5 to 8 days. We've leased 40 units out of the 176, which in my mind is very successful. We always strive to have roughly 30% of the units pre-leased prior to C of O. I think in this case, we should be closer to 50 to 60% by C of O. Overall, we do plan to have kind of a grand opening, which everybody will be invited to. I can assure you, we just want to get the date pinned down so I can hold our GC accountable and say, this is the date. You can't move it because council's invited. So a lot of pressure. But we're very, very excited about it. Leasing activity has been great. Minus insurance and some of those other things that are out of our control. We kind of can't do a whole lot about it, but leasing's been fantastic. So as you can see here, I know we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but just wanted to kind of revisit it. Our Phase 2 project is just to the east of the Phase 1. It is in the current parking lot that is currently owned by the Brain family, or the Walsh Teacher Security Bank building that is adjacent to us. Our plan is for 96 units. That would be complementary of Phase 1. No renaming. We don't need to go through all the different names of this one. It's going to stay the Lanes, I promise you. But it will be 96 units, have roughly 105 parking spaces, have about 1,600 feet of retail, kind of on that hard corner, which will, in this case, will be the northwest corner. And then have a couple diagonal spaces out front for our retail. we really want to make sure that retail can thrive, close parking, all those things that we know are extremely important for a project. Our plan is to obviously go through this process and then start construction, hopefully spring of 2025. This construction period, I am optimistic will be less, hopefully 16 to 18 months. Very similar in the unit matrix. I don't know if you want to flip slides here. Yeah, this gives you a good idea of the kind of just the overall site plan. We've got to work through a couple things. The biggest one is there's a significant portion of this site that's in a 100-year floodplain. We're going to have to elevate this site about 1.5 to 2 feet to get it out of the floodplain, which unfortunately does have some nuances to it, but we're navigating those currently. But so we have to get it out of the floodplain, and then obviously want to make sure that we have the proper fire access, all those things kind of going around the site. But not an overly complicated site, knock on wood. We are working with the property owner of the office building. There's some nuances to it regarding the purchase, and now that I'm sure all of you are very well aware that the security bank drive-through is no longer there, it's now Lost Tetrick. So they're going to add some parking spaces to their site. And then we'll have kind of a cross-parking access agreement. I think if there's any use that's complementary to each other in this day and age, it's office and it's multifamily. They work really well together. Like to see more people in the office, but the reality is that's just not the case anymore. So they have the ability to work from home or go to the office, which we think we have an agreement on how that will work from a comfort perspective, and to make sure the office is properly parked and there are no issues on that front. Maybe we can go to the next slide here. This is I don't need to show this. You know the location. It's again just to the east. 4 stories, be very similar to the first phase. First will be a podium structure, all kind of garage, internal parking. And then behind it, we really want to keep, I mean, our objective, and I think the city's objective as well, we want to activate Martway. That's a big piece for, I think, this whole corridor. And so we want to activate Martway. We want all that parking kind of hidden, tucked behind. And then there'll be some parking here on the south side of the site. Very minimal visible as you walk or drive on Martway. And then there you can see the unit count, very similar to phase one. We've had a lot of success so far with our early leasing on a lot of the 1 bedrooms, a lot of studios, and had a little more interest on the 2 bedrooms. And so, you know, maybe we push a little bit more of that. We've actually got quite a few people that have office space across the street in Mission Mart that are leasing. And I do think about, I asked our leasing agent this earlier, about 60 to 65% of the leases we've signed to date will be new people to Mission. So hopefully they can just call that little area home and walk around and go to the Peanut, hang out, and come stay at home and then go to the office. So I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has. Again, I always enjoy this dialogue and the city of Mission, and we appreciate all your support.
All right, thank you. And just to clarify, before we move on to our next speaker, even though we did note that this was our second public hearing, I just wanted to make sure to note that we have officially opened the public hearing. So again, after we get through our presentations, we'll open it up for public comment for any of our speakers. Thanks, Banks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And now our financial advisor, Mr. Bruce Kimmel with Ellers, is online with us. And we have a couple of slides. There was a memo in your packet that detailed sort of his analysis and review of the financials of the project. And so we'll ask him to touch on that. And then we will move into kind of some of the mechanics of the deal points tentatively drafted in the development agreement.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Bruce Kimmel with Ellers. Nice to be with you. I don't seem to be able to start my video, so you won't be able to see my smiling face, but I'm glad to be with you. And as Laura mentioned, I just have a couple of slides relating to the financial aspects of the Mission Lanes Phase 2. Moving on to the Ellers analysis, the first slide there, much like we did with the first phase of the Lanes project back in the year 2020, We took a really detailed look at the developer's project budget, the operating pro forma, and the financing plan. And as was the case with the first phase, we did find that everything hung together financially, and that the assumptions and estimates were really quite reasonable across the board. We didn't see anything that caused us to believe that it was either overly optimistic or overly conservative in terms of the projections and the assumptions there. We also looked in detail for proof or evidence of a profitability gap and a rationale for the assistance that's being requested. As you know, the developers are asking for the IRB sales tax exemption as well as TIF reimbursement for eligible costs. And this but-for analysis did show a gap, and I will get to a few details on that on my next slide. This wasn't a heavy lift, but we wanted to make sure that the developer was planning to repeat the commitments that they made to the city for phase one relating to affordability, the allocation of the pay-go TIF between the developer and the city, and the environmental sustainability elements. And those elements were all confirmed and reflected in the pro forma as appropriate, especially the affordable units. It was very clear. They laid out the units that would be affordable, and the rent levels for those were consistent with what we expected, and for tenants earning at 60% of AMI or less. Moving on to the next slide, the developer did state that ideally they would like to get to a cash-on-cash return, which is a little bit different than the internal rate of return that we often look at with these types of projects. But their goal was a cash-on-cash return of 6.5%, essentially by the end of year 2, the first year of full operations and project stability. In our experience with similar projects, similar mixed income, affordable market rate housing projects, we would typically see developers hoping to be closer to 8 or 9% cash on cash at this point in the arc, the life cycle arc, if you will. And so this is definitely on the lower end of what we would expect a developer to be looking for. The developer did indicate that they are fortunate to have equity investors that are more patient perhaps than other investors and really looking for longer term returns and not necessarily for the quick buck that you might see with some other types of housing development. We then ran the numbers and estimated that without the TIF, I should note that this is assuming the sales tax exemption on construction materials, but without the proposed TIF, the estimated cash-on-cash return would be just under 5%. And the cash-on-cash return with the incentives, with the TIF and all of those city priorities that I noted on the previous slide, they're right around 6%. So they're not at their target. However, as I mentioned in the memo that you've seen, they do believe that they have some opportunity for fine-tuning the budget and some of the other parameters that might get them closer to that 6.5%. And then finally, this chart, a lot of numbers here, but this chart is also in your memo. But I did want to show what we're looking at here for the phase-in of the new values and how you're essentially looking at 17.5 to 18 years of full TIF based on the development of the project. So the 20-year term is really closer to a 17 or an 18-year term. And with the ratcheting down of the TIF going to the developer, those are the red numbers on the right-hand side. You can see the amount that would be going to the developer on a pay-as-you-go basis versus to the city. And the city has ongoing or continued TIF-eligible expenses of its own, primarily relating to the Rock Creek stormwater improvements that it will be able to use its portion of the TIF toward. And then, of course, after 20 years, this all becomes general property taxes and is for the overall tax and corporate purposes of the city. So why don't I stop there and see if you have any questions for me?
Do we want to, how about we hold our questions until we
Okay.
get through all of our presentations? So we'll let Kevin go next and then return. Thanks, Bruce.
I would note, I think Mr. Kimmel touched on the sales tax exemption, but I know because it's been part of our discussions earlier. The parcels that are in question right now are currently both the north and the south side of Martway are one parcel. The county will have to physically divide that. That has not yet occurred. But if we look at sort of the pro rata portion that will be impacted in phase two, the city's generating about $3,300 of property tax revenue off of that currently. And so as we look at this increased investment, I just wanted to kind of set that benchmark for the revenue that's being received from that property currently.
Thank you.
Right. Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Kevin Wimpy with Gilmore and Bell. We represent the city as your bond counsel. As you heard from several others tonight, the development agreement and the germane terms in there are very similar to what you saw at phase one next door to this project. So hopefully that provides some comfort up front. I know not all of you were in these seats 4 years ago when that was approved, and those who were have slept several times since then. So we'll take a few minutes to go down the highlights, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you all might have. The two incentives again are TIF provided on a pay-as-you-go basis. That means no city bonds issued up front to provide upfront financing. The project will be financed privately through private debt and equity of the developer, and the TIF reimbursement would happen as it's collected over the 20-year maximum term. The developer's share of that TIF increment begins at 90%, and every 5 years of the TIF steps down 5%, and resulting in the final 5 years at 75% going to the developer, with the balance all going to the city throughout that term. The second incentive is the IRBs for sales tax exemption on construction materials and furniture, fixtures, and equipment. As we've talked about before on other projects, that's again not an upfront financing mechanism. The bonds are merely there to provide that exemption from sales tax for those materials and lower the overall cost of the project for the developer. The development agreement also has a set schedule and milestone dates for the developer to meet. The key ones being commencement of construction by end of 2025 and completion of construction no later than the end of 2027. As you heard from the developer a few minutes ago, plans are certainly in place to move more quickly than that, but those are sort of the back end dates for those two key benchmarks. The agreement contains usual covenants about performance and operation of the project, general upkeep and maintenance of the project in a sightly manner. And the two key ones you've already heard and would expect here tonight are again, similar to phase one of provision of attainable housing units, about 20% of the units, meaning 19 at this project, provided to those making 60% or less of the Kansas City area median income. And those units are 1 and 2 bedroom units and studio units throughout the project. And the developer is required to provide an annual report certifying that those requirements have been met. And then secondly, the sustainability requirements of achieving LEED Silver on the project and the ongoing operation of that. And there's an exhibit attached to the development agreement that has specific sustainable improvements that must be incorporated into the project as well. Finally, a typical event of default and remedies for the city where if the developer doesn't perform, timely construct or upkeep the project or provide the attainable housing or sustainability measures, the city can provide notice of default and provide a 60-day cure period for the developer. If a event of default is not remedied, then the city can take action to terminate all or a portion of the developer's rights under the agreement, including provision of the ongoing TIF incentive. So those are the key points of the development agreement, and be happy to try to answer any questions if you have those.
All right, I think we'll do our public comment and then open it up for council comments and questions for any of our presenters.
Did we
or
touch
comment.
on the fact that it's not 100% of the TIF on that sliding scale? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, Kevin did the breakdown over the
Thank
5-year
you.
periods.
I-
Yeah. We got it. All right, so now we will have public comment corresponding to the public hearing. So again, if you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you're part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand, but stay seated and we will call on you to come to the lectern to make your comments. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. If I need to confirm something that may have been difficult to hear, I will ask for clarification. Like our last item, public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. So anyone in the audience have a comment tonight? Yeah, I see Joe's hand, and then Kim.
Joe Donaway from Mission, Kansas. Speaking on this, I haven't seen an 8 to 9% cash on cash return in apartments pretty much across the nation in several years. If anything, all the groups that I've been following, all of the research that I've done over the past several years has shown that apartments are a declining market. The actual rate of return on many of projects that I've seen have been 2 to 3%, and some investors are going off of pro forma numbers instead of actual investment numbers, which is kind of pie in the sky thinking in my own personal opinion. So that's a little worrying. The 6%, I mean, that's still doing much better than what the market's doing right now. Secondly, I would like to ask our new apartment bringer inners if they're using algorithmic pages such as RealPage to set rates, whether it be RealPage or any similar algorithmic kind of service that helps them set the rents versus what the market is asking for. Thank you.
All right, I think I saw Kim's hand next.
Kim Donaway, Mission, Kansas resident. So they brought up about having to, again, bring up a foot to 2 feet to get it out of the floodplain. Who's going to bear that cost? Two, since he brought up equity investors and we played in that playground, so they're getting 50% of the pie for the next 20 years. So we get nothing for 20 years. There's no affordable housing until 20 years. It moves from Class A to Class B because it's commercial. So they have standard rates of length of time. But I don't agree with this amount of TIF being given out. It doesn't benefit the residents. I'm done subsidizing the rest of the residents, the new ones. And what's the benefits? What are we getting for the current residents living here instead of giving this out? Because I know how these games are played. And this is unacceptable for the residents. Everybody's talking about that's not right. The only reason I came up here is because neighbors started bringing it to me, and a lot of them don't show up. I took the time out to come tonight because I do voice, it's such a money grab at this stage. And it's not warranted. We're landlocked. Our property is valuable. They want to build here. We don't need to be giving out these gravy trains to them. We really don't, but I have grave concerns about this. I mean, thank you.
Okay, I do see one more hand. Yep, Dale, I think it was. Yes.
So again, my name is Dale Weathered. I'm a Mission, Kansas resident, and I just want to do a point of clarification. So what the administrator mentioned that currently the city is realizing, I believe you said $3,600, $3,300 in sales tax. So looking at the projections that the bond council provided to us, it appears that in year 3, that the city's contribution would increase to $15,364. Is that correct? Which to me, I think the advantage of having the affordable housing starting and guaranteed for those 20 years, plus seeing an increase of about $12,000 a year, starting in year 3 and going up substantially after that. I do speak in favor of this plan.
Thank you. And sorry, Laura, I might have cut you off. Did you have another clarification that you wanted to make?
Yes.
Before-
I just wanted to address something that Ms. Dunaway said. I think just, and Mr. Weather did indicate that attainable housing is available from years 1 through 20 of this project. And that is a condition of that. And again, the benefit, one of the benefits, I believe, to the taxpayers is that public TIF eligible costs would include reimbursement for the stormwater improvements that were made to the channel, which were borne 100% by the city of Mission. We did not have any Johnson County SMAC dollars that came into play. We issued debt for that. And so being able to reimburse ourselves for those eligible costs, you may recall during the budget presentation, we talked about the other remaining stormwater needs throughout the community. So by being able to take that in and reimburse ourselves for those costs that have been made historically will free up actual dollars for stormwater infrastructure investments, whether that's tied to street projects, creek channel projects, neighborhood localized drainage projects. So that's where we perceive some of that benefit to current taxpayers.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other public comments here in person? Sorry, it's limited to one comment session per person, Joe, for each item. Do we have anyone online? Okay, we'll open it up to council comment or question for any of our presenters. Yeah, Leah?
Just to go back to what we were talking about with the property tax, as you brought up, you know, on the slide, it showed with the pay-as-you-go financing slide that during that 20-year time frame, Mission will receive $1.264,969 million during that time frame. So if we don't develop this parcel, we'll receive about $66,000. So there's a huge benefit to developing this property. And as it is now, with a percentage of it being in the flood zone and the developer taking care of that with the building costs, I assume, is that right? Yes, he shakes his head right. No one else is going to probably take this parcel of land that's in a floodplain and develop something there without some sort of incentive. I mean, it's in a floodplain. That's why we're giving a bit of incentive. So to say that we're taking money out of taxpayer pockets to allow this development doesn't really make sense to me when I can see we're making a huge amount more money on property tax. We're developing a piece of land that it will sit there undeveloped. You know, we'll be getting money for the stormwater, repairs that we've done. I mean, there's a lot of benefit to the city from doing this particular project.
Any other council comment or questions? Yeah, Debbie?
Okay, I have a statement that I'm going to make for the record. The issue of tax abatements and incentives have gone awry. People like them, they don't like them. You know, there's a whole variety of things. But the city has leveraged its wisdom in putting these projects together, looking at the sustainable features of every developmental project. And that was the right thing to do a long time ago. It's the right thing to do today. The difference being the pieces that we are looking at for environmental sustainability and improvements are nothing compared to the stormwater aspects of these projects. We have talked about pervious versus impervious parking. The city has invested $30 million in stormwater remediation activity, including the interceptor that goes down Johnson Drive. I'm asking for the record that we put either a group together and talk about how we benefit as a city collectively on looking at these stormwater issues and have the if you know, I voted against the tax abatement. It wasn't right for me. And I respect other people's opinion, but that's not right for me or my constituents. But I think we need to look at parking, look at the concrete that's taken over this 2.5 square miles. We had the ability to come in and say to the developer, and it's expensive, this is what we would like. You know, if you do lighting, that's a check mark. These are check marks. I want true sustainability. I spent 35 years at EPA. I think I know what I'm talking about. And I just want to look for the record at coming up with some kind of a plan to look at pervious versus impervious parking surfaces and how we benefit environmentally over time. Thanks.
Right, any other council comments or questions? Right, seeing none, as Laura mentioned, what we're doing with this project due to when materials were available is we are going to formally continue the hearing on the lanes at Mission Bowl Phase 2 TIF redevelopment project plan and split of the TIF district number 3B to the September 18th, 2024 city council meeting at 7 p.m. for further discussion and action. Laura, can you please provide information on the remaining steps in the process for the benefit of the governing body and the public?
Yes, thank you. So I think it was outlined in your packet. We would continue the public hearing. So if there's any additional information or questions that you all have or the public may have between now and our September 18th meeting. Is that the right date, Robin? Do you know? The 18th. Okay. Please feel free to forward those to us. We'll make sure we get those answered. We had talked, depending on questions that were generated this evening, about the potential for a work session next Wednesday. And I would just like to kind of ask council's opinion about whether or not you feel that's necessary or you think we can cover. We will also have this on the Finance and Administration Committee agenda on the September committee meetings in advance of the meeting on the 18th. So do we want to have a do we feel like we need to have a work session next week to review this, or do you think we can cover any remaining issues at the committee meeting? And I will tell you, committee agendas are fairly light at this point in September. So, okay. So we will do that. And then for action, and again, it will be the same materials. They were all included in your packet, but you would have an ordinance which would adopt the TIF project plan, would authorize the signatures or the mayor to sign the development agreement, and would then result in the split of the existing TIF District 3B into TIF District 3B and 3C. So that would be one action item. And then you would have a second action item, which would be a resolution related to the IRBs for the sales tax exemption on construction materials. So those would be, well, again, preview those at the September Finance and Administration Committee meeting for council action, continuation of the public hearing on the 18th of September.
All right. And I assume our team of experts will be available then as
Yes,
well.
our
if
team of
council thinks
experts
of
will be
questions.
available should we have additional questions.
Perfect. All right, we will move now then into our special presentations. So we do have two special presentations this evening. Our first is a presentation from Climate Action KC. Laura, will you please introduce our special guest?
Well, I don't think our special guest needs any introduction, but it's my pleasure to welcome Ms. Emily Randall back to share with us an update from Climate Action KC.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, staff, public. I am more than a normal amount pleased to be here this evening. Thank you for having me. I am contracting now with Climate Action KC on a part-time basis, and that is new for the organization to have administrative support. And as a part of my first duties with the organization, we arranged for visits to local councils on both sides of the state line to just sort of update everyone, to sort of reinvigorate the local government partnerships that we have, and to update you on what we're up to and what will be coming up. So that is the reason for my attendance this evening. The budget hearings were the bonus.
You are a government geek. We'll give you that.
Thank you. So just a little bit of history for anyone who is unaware, the history of Climate Action KC. Some of you were even more at the table in those days than I was working at city staff here in the city of Mission. The story goes that then Roland Park Mayor Mike Kelly and then Council Member Lindsay Constance from the city of Shawnee came together after reading the IPCC report and realized that there was much more coordination that could be happening at the local level here in our region to address climate change and the reports we were receiving from a global perspective. The photos on the left demonstrate the current executive board. It's a very diverse group of cross-sector participants, but some of them have been there from the beginning. The photos on the right represent a not comprehensive list of people who were volunteering their time back in those early days to gauge interest, to do the first steps, motivating the public, getting others on board, to really coalescing around some of these topics. Next slide, please. The first tangible piece and evidence that I saw of Climate Action KC was the playbook. This was a very welcome piece for local government staffers and I believe elected officials that came out in 2019 that was based in the science-based practices of Project Drawdown that really addressed a cross-sector approach to every element of our work in the local government space and service delivery, and shared the whys and also the hows of these practices and gave local governments pretty concrete steps in sort of a menu format to either guide local policy action by example or by policy change, or to educate the community members in the spaces that they had jurisdiction. Next slide, please. The next real big effort and push was Climate Action KC working with the Mid-America Regional Council to develop the Regional Climate Action Plan that came out in 2021 and was approved by many councils, including this one, by resolution in support of the efforts. It included the results of a greenhouse gas inventory and strategies, many strategies to tackle the issues at a local level. We've listed the cities that passed those resolutions there. Next slide, please. Included in that plan were these goals, which I know this group's very familiar with, to ultimately reach a net zero Kansas City region by 2050. These are clearly ambitious goals, but I know that you are familiar with how climate change is impacting all of the things we've just discussed in the budget hearing, with the intensity of storms, heating and cooling centers, all types of issues that you all touch every day. And so working together, we figure we'll get to some of these solutions more quickly. Next slide, please. In the emissions report that was included in the Climate Action Plan, no surprise, comes out at 63% of our emissions regionally come from the building sector. So our building space, commercial and residential both. Next slide, please. So Climate Action KC stood up the Building Energy Exchange, Kansas City. The Building Energy Exchange model is one that is used in a variety of places around the country, targeting really anybody that has a hand in the building space. So all the way from, developers, architects, engineers, real estate professionals, property managers, contractors, anybody that's touching a building and how it operates and how it might be emitting greenhouse gases. So we're a training facility. The photo there is of Ashley Sadowski. She is the executive director of Building Exchange Kansas City. She's housed at MARC at the Mid-America Regional Council, supported in part by Climate Action KC and some by grants from MARC. The photo that you see there is from a recent event that was held in June that really was a half-day event and held in conjunction with the USGBC local chapter to highlight federal funding and educate people that are working on the types of projects like we heard tonight in order to take advantage of those federal funds. And that recording is available for anyone who'd like to see. Next slide, please. The next largest slice of the pie is from our transportation sector. Again, both commercial fleet vehicles, but also residential or from private consumer, private driver. Next slide, please. So in March of 2024, Climate Action KC launched along with Evergy Plug-in KC, and that being an initiative to just help with the facilitation of the transition to electric vehicles. So helping with education, consumer education before a person goes to the dealer and asks for their first EV. Can we give them some information and data points to provide to the dealer to bolster their efforts? Can we help them understand what kind of electrical upgrades they need to use in their homes, how to take advantage of the tax credits that are available, letting them know even what those are. Also, though, on the fleet side, really trying to coordinate the building out of the EV charging infrastructure in the region. And I know we've done that here in Mission. You all have done that here in Mission. The photo there is Jamie Green. He's one of our contractors working in this space that you might be seeing or hearing from. Next slide. One of the most visible outputs of Climate Action KC is the summit. I know many of you have attended in years past. The first one was an oh wow kind of moment, I think, in 2019 at Johnson County Community College, when it was really really a mobilizing factor for all of us who attended to see that number of people in one room working together to tackle these issues. There have been 2 summits since that time, and the next one will be in the spring of 2025. Hope to see many of you there. It really is a storytelling, educating, and aligning effort. And I think it's told a nice story about progress in our region as we go through the years. And I expect that the spring summit will include a lot more action on the climate action side, just because so many people have been doing so much good work in these years since our first one. Next slide. The local government peer workshop was something that I led in June. This is speaking directly from my experience working for a community that was very supportive of these issues, but from a seat that had limited staff capacity. So I knew there were others like me in the region, and we invited anyone who would like to attend to come to this meeting. We targeted especially people that were working primarily on the sustainability climate action work within their jurisdictions. And we just talked about what was coming up next and how we might like to work together, the kind of pressing issues that everybody was tackling. And I just think there's lots of aligning and work together that we can do in that space. I tried my best to consolidate everybody's up next projects to show sort of like projects, but also the range of things that are being done. We kind of talked through these at that event. I highlighted the EV charging stations just to sort of reflect climate action's work that Mission took advantage of on the Connecting JOCO grant, the carbon reduction program grant. That was a very good example of the value that I think climate action KC can provide to local governments by making the yes easier, taking the work out of grant applications. So we say we have some funds, we think EV charging infrastructure might be applicable to this grant. Let us call our contacts working at all the cities, give them, with a little bit of money on our end, we can pay for an engineer to price out some of that infrastructure and then give you all a number. And that's the legwork. So you need a yes, you need someone to show us around the parking lots, to show us where we might be putting the EV charging stations. And then we can get to yes much more quickly, and maybe take advantage of funds that wouldn't have even been considered if each city had to do it on their own. Next slide, please. We did ask at that event what Climate Action KC could do for city staff. We included just a few ideas there, and you can see how the interest varies across those. So we'll just be working with those contacts who attended that event and try to be as responsive and flexible as we can be with how we can help best. Next slide. So really the reason we're here is to update you, to give you a refresher on the organization overall, and then to say, we're looking for opportunities to work together to, I think we have a lot of interest on a lot of the elected officials side, and I don't want the staff side to be a bottleneck, but also there's lots of other work happening. And so how can we keep Mission at the table and working ahead, but also use your experience to inform how Climate Action KC can be responsive to that. So we have Facebook, LinkedIn for both Plug-in KC, Building Energy Exchange, and Climate Action KC. So please do follow and interact with us there. And then also we have about every 6 weeks or so a newsletter that comes out that will share all this kind of information and keep you posted about what we're coming up with next. And then next slide is contact information. You're happy to reach out anytime, and I'll take questions if there are any.
All right, questions for Emily? Yeah, Debbie?
Emily, remind me, do you have a contingency plan within the big plan itself that talks about the possibility of technology changing and your goals could come back and be more hefty, if you will?
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. I would say that do you mean the climate action plan? I think that it's, what I'm learning more and more is that there's just a kind of a move ahead on all fronts and then just remain flexible. And I think everyone is doing a good job of that. So focusing right now on electric vehicles, but also knowing we have to really work at, zoning laws and pedestrian infrastructure, all those things, kind of staying flexible. So I think so. I think it's the plan is responsive, but I also think Mark is working on an update to the plan, and I think we're taking pieces out of that and moving them along. Sure.
Any other questions for Emily?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good to see you.
Thanks. Thanks so much.
All right. Our second special presentation tonight is an update from Chief Steve Chick of Consolidated Fire District 2.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. I'll try to be brief tonight because you have a lot on your agenda. So a couple of things. First of all, As you all probably know, we have a quarterly report that we send out that gives a little data to the people who are subscribed to that. And that's been really good because I hear a lot of feedback from folks within the district that they enjoy seeing that. Over the last, for the second quarter of this year, you all will have, City of Mission will have received some reports that are very colorful, that look kind of like this. You may or may not recognize that right offhand, but what that is our opportunity to communicate directly with the city about the things that we're doing for you, the types of calls we're running specifically in the City of Mission. And then at the bottom, there's a breakdown of some response times with our turnout time, meaning the amount of time it takes from getting the emergency call to when we're rolling out the door. And then our travel time, the amount of time that takes to get from the station to the emergency. And so really the purpose behind that was to give you the information about the trends and call volumes. What I see with Mission right now is that we're remaining pretty steady year over year, 23 to 2024 with call volume, but the mix of what types of calls we're running are changing slightly. And so, it really doesn't alarm me. What we've done is we've taken a statistical look at it and said, hey, what are we seeing? We do think that those call volumes will continue to change as we see older folks in our community. That's a prevalent issue. And then the second part of that is as we see development and we're building up, those call volumes will change as a result of that as well. So, but the response time breakdown at the bottom really was, hey, we want you to understand we're accountable for our actions and we want you to see those things. You'll see at the bottom of your Q2 report that we have, an improvement in our turnout time, which is the time it takes to get out the door. In some cases, as much as 30 or 40 seconds, which means a lot in our world. And then you'll see some reduction in travel times, specifically for emergent fire calls. We've dropped that by over a minute. So we're really pretty pleased with those kinds of responses. And so as you get that report, that's what we're doing, is saying, hey, as your partner, we're telling you how we're doing, and we're sharing our from an accountability standpoint, we're sharing like, hey, this is the kind of work we're doing for you. So as we move forward, I wanted to talk about a couple of other things. First of all, I'd like to point out that Janet Fanska, Mission resident, has been on our board for 21 years and has served us very well. And the commissioner notified her this month that she's not going to be reappointing her. There will be a new resident of Mission that's going to join our board. It'll be up for approval with the city council. That'll be a resident from Millhaven. And so we're looking forward to that. Sarah Sanders is who's being presented for the CFD2 board member. And so we're excited about having another Mission resident join our board. And so just wanted to let the city know that we really appreciate all of the work that Janet's done for us on behalf of the City of Mission and representing the residents for 21 years. And that's a remarkable period of time to be on a volunteer board. So, so then last thing I'd like to do, we provided our budget presentation to the county, and we had our hearing last night and approved the budget for fiscal year 2025 for Consolidated Fire District number 2. I want to give you guys just a couple of brief high points from those presentations and the budget approvals. So first of all, CFD2 is quite proud of and remains a fiscally responsible steward of the taxpayers' dollars. Again, this year we received the highest possible rating awarded for our annual audit, and we continue to be very careful about how we utilize taxpayers' dollars and make sure that those benefit the taxpayers who are providing those to us. Couple of things, we're a destination organization. What that means is that many people look to come to work for CFD2. This is a place where they'd like to spend the rest of their career. That's evidenced by our turnover rate, which is 1.38% annually, which is literally unheard of in emergency services. And so our culture remains strong. People want to work here. People love serving the community here. And so that's a win-win for both us and the community. Training hours continue to exceed our goals. We last year trained for documented over 12,000 hours in a lot of high-risk type situations. Literally over 12 or 13% of that was with partners like our police department partners and other people that we collaborate with and respond into emergencies in these specific areas for. So I'd like to remind the residents and the city that we remain an ISO class 1. And there's only 411 departments out of 50,000 that are graded in North America that make an ISO Class 1 rating. And what that means for the taxpayer is that you enjoy the lowest possible insurance rates based on that rating. And so what happens is that for home and business insurance, if you're higher than a Class 1, you start getting into the Class 3, 4, 5, you could get the insurance rate for one structure could be uprated or significantly more expensive if you're a higher class than probably a 1 or a 2. So then the last thing is I wanted to talk to you just briefly about the budget and what our proposal was and what was approved last night. That is that CFD2 proposed that we held the mill levy steady this year at 10.007. That's still representing a 5-year total reduction of 1.743 mills. Our proposed levy is equal to that of 2011. And so we're doing a good job of controlling that. As we admit, like any governmental agency, that last year to this year, we will collect more tax dollars, but I think we're all in the similar business, and you understand that retaining people and the costs rising, there has to be some level of tax increase. And we've just been judicious in trying to make sure that we put money away for a rainy day. And we don't have any needs that would cause us to increase the mill levy. In fact, what we've done is through budget savings over the last couple of years, we've been able to build reserves. And so we're in the process of renovating and updating a facility at 63rd and Mission Road. We're in the design process right now and starting to look at we're beginning design. We've looked at programming to figure out what we need out of that project. And that project is not going to require any bond issuance or any debt to the taxpayer. We're going to be able to use cash and pay for that so that there's no interest or other costs associated with doing that work. And so we're pretty proud of that. Leave you with a couple of statistics that we're real proud of. Over the last 6 years in the district in its entirety, not just the city of Mission, but the entire Consolidated Fire District 2 coverage area, there's been a 43.23% increase in property values. We've only realized a 21.9% increase in revenue in that period of time. And what that means is that half of that money has gone back in the pocket of the taxpayer where we feel like it should be. And so we're proud of that. Our 6-year history, this is data that we were able to get from Johnson County. Our 6-year history shows that CFD2 has lowered the mill and our ad valorem taxes proportionally more than any other taxing subdivision in Commission District 1. And so we're really proud of that work. And we continue to deliver a better quality service for a very reasonable price for the taxpayers. So with that, I'll be happy to stand for any questions.
Any comments or questions? Yeah, Debbie?
Thank you. We appreciate your support.
Yeah, Leah?
Okay, this might be a silly question, but
No silly questions.
there's a lot of road construction going on. So do you have something that kind of helps you know what parts to avoid?
Yes, so we do several things. First of all of our cities try to communicate with us when they have road closings so that we can get those entered into the CAD, and that's a computer-aided dispatch system. And it's got a mapping feature that we can hit, and it'll remind us what roads are closed and open. But our people, our drivers, we have professional paid drivers that it's a promoted spot. They know where the road closings are, and they're expected to know those things and to navigate properly. I mean, that's part of their job, and that's why we pay them. And so we have multiple ways of keeping track of that. We share that information throughout the organization so that the officers, the drivers, and the firefighters know what roads are experiencing, either closures or slowdowns. And then that's also entered into the CAD system to remind us. Yeah, so we have seen some, no kidding, you guys are well aware of the construction going on, right? Like Row and Mission Road, and there's all kinds, we've seen some slowdowns in response time, but most of that is just, we've had to take some crazy routes to get to some areas.
Well, that's why I asked, because sometimes it takes me a little longer to get home than I anticipated. So
And it sometimes takes us a little longer to get somewhere than we anticipated too. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I had one quick comment and then a question for you. The comment was, we have a family member who is dating a firefighter, and I think you all weren't hiring at the time, but they told us completely unsolicited when we said where we lived that CFD2 is where everyone wants to be. So I think that's, reflected in your retention rate, and probably also why you weren't hiring when they were looking for a job. So
Right.
well done there. And then my question was, I think it was maybe at the last Millhaven HOA meeting, you mentioned some efforts that you were trying to get off the ground with like home safety and things like that for our senior residents. I was wondering if you could just comment on status of that.
Yeah, thank you for asking. That's an initiative that we're going to begin looking at really seriously over the next year here. What we're thinking of is kind of a safe seniors program, and what we're looking for, we run a tremendous amount of calls that are injuries from trips and falls, from things where structural improvements or handrails or things like that could have helped a resident not to have gotten injured. And so one of the things, this would be a voluntary program, and one of the things we want to make available is for residents, and especially those older residents. Like, we recognize that a home is somebody's largest investment they've made in their life, right? And so many people don't want to move out of their home, and so they're staying in them longer. And so we want to be that resource where they can call and say, hey, come and voluntary, come help us to understand what we can do for our safety as we age in our home. And then it gives us an opportunity to go and help them understand what needs to be done, both from a fire and life standpoint, but from a physical safety standpoint as well.
Great. So we should expect more in the next year or
Yes,
so
ma'am. And
coming on that?
you're going to hear more.
Great.
We're excited
Perfect.
about this program.
Any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
And then we do not have any items related to the issuance of notes or bonds this evening, so we will move into our consent agenda. Our consent agenda has 6 items tonight. Our council committees met on August 7th and fully discussed each of these items. The committees agreed that the items listed on our consent agenda are routine enough to be considered under a single motion. If a council member or member of the public would like an item removed from the consent agenda, they may request that at this time. If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor, I move the city council adopt the consent agenda as printed, items 4A through 4F.
Second.
All right, we do have a motion and a second, but I believe I saw sorry. Okay. Motion and a second. Any further council discussion? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Crane. Aye. Loudon.
Aye.
Josie.
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Hayden Chomposi.
Aye.
Ryard.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, next we move into our public comment section of the agenda. This is for any members of the public who would like to make a comment on an item that is not included on our agenda tonight. So again, if you're participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comments verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand but stay seated and we'll call on you to come to the lectern to make your comments. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence. Also be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. If I need to confirm something that may have been difficult to hear, I'll ask for clarification. Again, public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Yeah, Kim?
Kim Donaway, Mission, Kansas resident. I so want to acknowledge the fire department for their quick response to that massive gas leak that was done by these guys who didn't pull permits, did not do right away, 2 houses up from me, and gas was spewing. I have videos of it. So their response was so quick. But then I started looking at the permits, because there's a lot of construction going on in houses, residential, and these people are not pulling permits. They don't have, so you don't even know what company they're with. They're not doing right away. And that's why, I mean, it was extremely dangerous. It just filled the whole cul-de-sac. And I was looking at the permits, and in the irrigation, do not assume anything. You have to put it in writing. We've all known that. It does not say get right of way marked, do the locates. Add that to what that's required, because I was looking at it. 2, again, I've had solicitors. Again, when I got home from work today, he approached me, waited till I got out of my vehicle, and I'm tired coming in from Topeka. And he's roofing. And I've had to have the conversation with the staff that any roof going on in the state of Kansas by any contractor or subcontractor, they are required by law to be registered with the state of Kansas and on the website. Our staff is not checking that. I'm having companies calling me nonstop because I'm starting to answer the phone out of curiosity, and it's all about roofs. So I want their names, because you go to the website. So I'd request that staff be required to follow the laws of the state of Kansas and have them check and add it to the requirement for roofing, because it is the law, that they have to be registered and check that, because Johnson County license doesn't mean anything to the state of Kansas on roofs. I've had to put on a lot of roofs. I've gone through OSHA showing up on properties and all the violations. So that's one thing that's missing, because that will also protect the consumer. Because you got a lot of people that don't know what they're doing, putting up roofs. And they're required by state of Kansas, they cannot be on a roof, period. And so when I see roofs, I call the state of Kansas on a lot of properties, just when I'm out and about. And then the last is, I don't know if this was on the agenda or not, Mission Magazine that we fund. I'm curious how come it's always showing up in the Fairway houses. I don't get Fairway Magazine. So why am I paying for it to be sent to Fairway? I'm curious because I have rentals in Fairway. And I called about it. Thank you.
You can. Do we have any other hands in our audience tonight? Seeing none, any online? Seeing none, we'll move into action items from our planning commission. We do have one item coming forward from the planning commission for consideration of the final plat for the Mission Beverly project. Carrie, will you please provide your report?
Thank you, Mayor. This is really actually going to be short. So it's a pretty cut and dried one. This is one of the final parts of the entitlement process for the Mission Beverly project. It's basically some dedication of right of way that you all need to approve. And I just wanted to kind of go over quickly some of the main highlights of the beautiful plat that we have for us today. So let's see, was on the final development plan, not the plat. This one is a proposal to consolidate 8 lots for the project at the northeast and southeast corners of Martway and Beverly. 5 lots on the north side of Martway and 3 lots on the south side of Martway with public realm improvements and additional right-of-way dedication. The project will incorporate public realm improvements that include the realignment of the Rock Creek Trail to the front of the project on the north side of Martway. At Building A, if you're familiar, Building A is on the north side, Building B is on the south side, with pedestrian easement to accommodate that, and as well as on-street parking there as well, some diagonal on-street parking. Also included are utility easements on Lot 1. That would include electrical easement, sewer easement, and the plat does maintain a 50-foot right-of-way for Dearborn, Beverly, and Martway. Easements within Lot 2 are a 24-foot common drive, electrical easement, pedestrian easement, drainage easement on the south in that 100-year floodplain, and a 10-foot pedestrian easement along the western boundary of that southern lot that will provide access to Anderson Park from Martway with potential future pathway build out. That's not part of that plan, but that's we're setting that up for future. There's also easement for the purpose of constructing and maintaining public roadways, stormwater, street lighting, sidewalks, trails, and anything that has to do with work in any part of those easements. And that's my staff report. I'm available for questions if you have any.
All right, we'll start with, is there any member of the public who would like to comment on the issue of this final plat? Seeing none, we'll open it up for council discussion. Any council comments or questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on the final plat for the Mission Beverly project.
Mayor, I move the city council accept the final plat of Mission Beverly with the dedication of right-of-way and easements.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Robin, please call the roll.
Green. Aye. Josie.
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Ryard.
Aye.
Loudon.
Aye.
Hayden Chomposi.
Aye.
Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. We will move into our committee reports. Councilmember Schmidt, will you please provide a report from the Finance and Administration Committee?
I will, thank you. The Finance and Administration Committee met on August 7th and considered 8 items. The meeting minutes, update to court fees and charges, and CFD2 special event permit for street solicitation were approved under the consent agenda earlier tonight. Resolutions for adoption of the 2024 revised and 2025 recommended budgets for the City of Mission, Rock Creek Drainage District numbers 1 and 2, along with a public nudity ordinance, will be considered under the regular agenda this evening. Item 7A, resolution adopting the 2024 revised and 2025 budget for the City of Mission. As a part of the annual budget process, the City Council adopts a budget resolution which outlines and describes the financial policies, tax and fee structures, and other related issues identified in a particular fiscal year. The 2024 revised and 2025 recommended budgets were developed through a series of public meetings and work sessions throughout the summer and are now ready to proceed to final adoption. The Council will consider 3 separate resolutions for the various budgets. This timing allows for the final budget and tax levy information to be communicated to the county clerk by October 1st, 2024, in order to certify rates and charges for the 2024 tax bills. Are there any public comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. I'm sorry. Yes, it is mine.
There you
Yep,
go.
long night, long day. Mayor, I move the City Council approve the budget resolution adopting the 2024 revised and 2025 recommended budgets for the City of Mission.
Second.
All right, we had a motion and a second. Did we have any public comment on this item? I don't think we saw any hands. So is there any council comment or question? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Josie,
Aye.
Crane,
Aye.
Boltinghouse,
Aye.
Carpenter Davis,
Aye.
Ryder,
Aye.
Loudon,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Hayden Chomposi. Aye. Motion carries.
Item 7B, resolution adopting the 2025 Rock Creek Drainage District number 1 budget. The City of Mission's budget resolution has now adopted and without additional resolutions have been prepared for council consideration to adopt the 2024 revised and 2025 recommended budgets for the 2 drainage districts. Mayor, I move the City Council approve the adoption of the 2025 Rock Creek Drainage District number 1 budget.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, any council comments or questions? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Loudon,
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Hayden Chomposi.
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Ryder,
Aye.
Crane,
Aye.
Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Josie,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item 7C, resolution adopting the 2025 Rock Creek Drainage District number 2 budget. Mayor, I move the City Council approve the adoption of the 2025 Rock Creek Drainage District number 2 budget.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, any council comment or question? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Hayden Chomposi.
Aye.
Crane,
Aye.
Josie,
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Ryder,
Aye.
Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Loudon,
Aye.
motion carries.
7D, public nudity ordinance. Recently has discovered that Mission does not have an enforceable ordinance that prohibits public nudity. Currently, most cases involving this type of activity can be charged as lewd and lascivious behavior. Lewd and lascivious behavior requires that there be sexual gratification associated with the nudity. If no sexual gratification can be proven, there is currently no other mechanism in our municipal code to charge someone if they are nude in public. Having the proposed ordinance in place will prohibit someone from knowingly or intentionally appearing in a state of nudity in a public place. A public place is defined as any place viewable or accessible by the public and could include private property such as a front or backyard. This ordinance would not be applicable to children under 5 years of age, places set apart for nudity such as locker rooms, dressing rooms, doctor's offices, as well as art-related events or educational-related activities involving nudity. The definition of nudity under this ordinance does not include the showing of male or female breasts. This is due to a ruling in a previous court case that any public nudity ordinance should not prevent women from showing their breasts if a man can do the same. Following discussion at the committee meeting, the proposed ordinance has been revised slightly to provide better discretion for situations where a homeowner might not expect to be viewed by the public. Mayor, I move the City Council approve an ordinance amending Chapter 215 of Mission's Municipal Code to prohibit public nudity.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, any council comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Ryder, Aye. Carpenter Davis. Aye. Schmidt.
Aye.
Crane. Aye. Loudon. Aye. Josie.
Aye.
Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Hayden Chomposi. Aye. Motion carries.
And that concludes my report.
Great. Thank you. We will now move into our community development. So Councilmember Reinhardt, will you please provide a report from the Community Development Committee?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The Community Development Committee also met on August 7th and considered 6 items. The meeting minutes, Johnson Drive Traffic Signal Enhancement, OGL, design contract, interlocal agreement with the City of Roland Park for the Eastern Johnson County Bike Share Program, and design contract for localized drainage projects were approved under the consent agenda earlier tonight. A short-term rental ordinance and nuisance party ordinance will be considered under the regular agenda this evening. In the past several years, short-term rentals, STRs, have become a common option for all types of travelers, including those on extended work assignments or in need of temporary housing. Consequently, STRs are becoming more prevalent in every city and neighborhood. While the vast majority of renters are respectful of the dwelling that they are renting and the neighborhood that they are renting in, there have been instances where rentals have become a nuisance due to large gatherings, traffic, noise, and frequency of rentals. As a result, many cities across the country, including several in the metropolitan area, have developed STR regulations to control the location, number, frequency, and activity of short-term rentals to preserve the residential character of the neighborhoods these rentals are often located in. Based on conversations occurring in neighboring communities and feedback from Mission residents, the City Council directed staff to prepare this item for Council's consideration at the August 21st, 2024 regular legislative session. The proposed ordinance establishes a new chapter 675 to Title 4 of the Mission Municipal Code that provides, 6, can't read Roman numerals apparently, of the Mission Municipal Code that provides for the licensing and regulation of STRs in the City of Mission. STRs are defined as dwellings or dwelling units that are rented for a period of 28 days or less. The proposed ordinance includes several specific duties and responsibilities of any owner, which are intended to ensure the property is in a safe, habitable condition and clearly communicate expectations surrounding impacts on the surrounding neighborhoods. Several cities that have adopted short-term rental license requirements use a software program or software platform known as Granicus to help ensure host compliance. Granicus has capabilities to search the websites of various booking service providers to identify listings that are in Mission. This information, along with screenshots of listings, is compiled into an online dashboard report provided to the city. The proposed effective date of the ordinance is January 1st, 2025. This provides sufficient time for more accurate data to be collected on the existing STRs in Mission and will provide staff the opportunity for communication and education for both owners and residents. Mayor, I move the City Council approve of the ordinance providing for a new Chapter 675 to Title 6 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mission, Kansas, licensing and regulating the short-term rental of dwellings and dwelling units.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment on this item? I saw Dale's hand first.
Hello, my name's Dale Weathered. Again, I live in Mission, Kansas. One of my concerns about the ordinance is I did not see provisions within the ordinance to restrict the frequency or concentration of short-term rentals. You know, as many people may know, the proliferation of short-term rentals has contributed to the availability of affordable housing units, not just for those who are economically disadvantaged, but even for middle class or other individuals. And so I would like to see some consideration of concentration and limits restricting the frequency or concentration of short-term rentals.
All right, yes.
Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
Somebody else, Mayor. I was just gonna elaborate on that.
Yeah, sure.
I would just like to share that I know the council has discussed that as a part of many of the discussions on the short-term rentals. One of the challenges we have right now, and why the recommendation to use the Granicus platform is to actually identify the number and location of short-term rentals in our community. And I would guess that once the council has that data, you may want to reopen and reconsider provisions of the ordinance. based on that, and there would certainly be that opportunity. But right now, we're sort of flying a little bit blind in terms of knowing what we have where and whether that frequency and concentration issue is something that is significant here in Mission.
Sorry, I think we talked about in a prior meeting that some cities like Fairway had an initial ordinance and then they went back and added something along those lines with buffer zones and the numbers of rentals. Let's see, do we have any more comments? Yeah, Joe and Kim?
Joe Donaway, resident of Mission. I think the legislation as it's written now will only incentivize bad actors. It will incentivize people who will pay the overly large fee, which means that those houses that could go to someone else, they'll be used for Airbnbs while it doesn't, or similar VRBO, while it doesn't set aside any sort of sliding scale provision for someone who's, say, renting a spare room in their apartment because a roommate left or because they broke up with someone. I know that in my own house, I walked into it and I knew that if something would have happened to my partner, I would be okay because I'd be able to rent out the upper portion of my house, maybe 1 or 2 weekends a month, and be able to meet my mortgage. So there's someone in Mission right now who is currently doing just that. In my research on this, I was able to find less than 15 Airbnbs in Mission. The Granicus platform looked like it was going to cost $3,000. Again, it looks like we're only going to incentivize the bad actors who are taking large houses, and we are going to punish smaller actors, smaller businesses, and people who may need to rent out a room or a part of their house to make ends meet. And especially with raising property taxes, it's not very fair to punish people who need to rent out part of their house to make ends meet.
Yeah, I think I saw Kim's hand up next.
Kim Donaway, Mission resident. I've never agreed with the bad actors and their party plans. I've always objected to that. I was part of the group that put together the rental ordinances, and we put in provisions, and my questions were, that I thought about it later, what kept people from calling the police about these Airbnbs that are violating codes? Those ordinances are already on the books. What prevented the people from calling the police to stop that action, the nuisance? Those ordinances are in place. What stopped the people from contacting the city staff and having the licenses revoked? Those are on the books. That was part of the things to give us enforcement back then with rental. Because an Airbnb, a verbal, whatever you want to call it, is a rental. And I want to know how come people wanted to whine and complain instead of complaining like I do. They all know me at the city because I know the rights. How come nobody else was calling, but they want to create this complex thing that punishes a lot of the smaller people? I want to know how you're going to track the apartments, because there's a lot of apartments and we're putting in luxury apartments that are going to be rented out as short-term rentals. How are you going to enforce that? I don't see it. And you're punishing a small house, but I don't see, what about the apartments? There's a lot of things that I don't agree with. I don't agree with the $500. I'm a very small actor with a couple of them, but I do fight these investors and friends of mine who want to play this playground because it's not right for the neighborhood. And I tell them to their face, I have it recorded. But there's certain things y'all are missing. And I'd like to see this move to further the discussion to clear up some things that aren't, so it doesn't come back and bite us in the butt, that's all, and get some more clarity about some of the items. Thank you.
Right. Do we have any other members of the public that want to comment on this item? Seeing no hands in person, anyone online? All right. Do we have any council members who have comment on this item? Yeah, Brian and Ben.
Yeah, my comment is just to go on record that Granicus is a client of mine. And so I just wanted to make it clear that my vote is on the ordinance and not on the application or purchase of the software.
And Laura, just to clarify that the software would fall within staff's pending or staff's spending authority and is not technically part of the council vote. Is that correct?
Correct. And I appreciate that disclosure. Technically, you would have to be receiving payment from Granicus for this work in order for that to be statutorily what would be considered a conflict of interest. But I appreciate that disclosure.
All right, I think I saw Ben's hand. Yep.
Yeah, I wanted to start by saying I share some of the concerns that Mr. Weathered, I think it was, brought up about the density and proximity of short-term rentals and the effect on the housing market. And I think Laura did a good job of sort of addressing where we stand on that issue. But that I share the same view in that I think there's a lot we don't know about what's out there, and I think writing ordinance language now to address a problem that we haven't been able to quantify is probably premature, considering we would almost certainly go back and just revise that once we have the data. I do want to say I also do share concerns voiced by, I think, both the Donaways about the costs. I understand that could possibly have a chilling effect on some smaller folks that provide short-term rentals. I think on balance, this ordinance language has been through a pretty careful, deliberate process to get to where we are today. But I am, I think, left with just some nagging thoughts about, if you are going to try to be a small, maybe one room or one home operator of a short-term rental, that $500 is a little bit of a bite. So that one's lingering with me, but in general, I think the balance of the ordinance is well considered and is something that residents, along with the nuisance party ordinance, have really been bringing to our consideration pretty vocally. So overall, in support, I do want to look carefully at what kind of feedback we get when we implement both the data acquisition around dense, what's out there in the market in Mission, and feedback we get when we go to collect or hear from folks once we pass this ordinance.
Yeah, Mary?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've spoken about this pretty much every time we've brought it up, but this is like one of the larger issues that specifically Leah and I have kind of dealt with in Ward 2. Multiple emails, multiple residents who have reached out to us kind of asking what measures the city has. And so I'm excited to vote this to kind of help out those folks kind of feeling that burn of buying a house and not realizing it was going to be a short-term rental next to them, or someone was living there and then decided to make it a short-term rental. So I do hope that this kind of helps mitigate some of those, I guess for lack of just uncomfortable, I guess it's even more than that because it's your home, but there's been all sorts of conversation around this. So I am in support of this and certainly in support of the following ordinance. So, yeah.
All right. Yeah, Brian.
Sorry, one more. It is a question this time. Really more a point of clarification. In regards to apartments potentially having their units go up for short-term rentals, I believe that is part of the purchase of the point of the software is to monitor that. Is that accurate? Okay.
I saw a head nodding from Laura.
Yes,
so-
sorry, you can hear the rocks rattling in my head. Yes, that is part of the consideration. And so they would be subject to the same licensing fees and considerations.
All right. Any further council comment or discussion? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Aye. Schmidt.
Aye.
Reiert.
Aye.
Wiltinghouse.
Aye.
Hayden Chomposi. Aye. Kring. Aye. Carpenter Davis. Aye. Josie.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, me again. Okay, nuisance party ordinance. Due to the growing frequency of short-term rentals throughout the county and in Kansas City metro area, the council and staff have been in discussions for the past few months about how to best regulate this use and mission. One of the concerns raised with short-term rentals, STRs, is that they often provide an opportunity for large gatherings and parties that can become a nuisance for surrounding neighbors. These gatherings can often result in excessive number of people, excessive vehicles or traffic, excessive noise, and even illicit activity. Because these nuisances are not exclusive to STR properties, the provisions were not incorporated into the STR licensing ordinance, also being considered by the council. Rather, staff has prepared an ordinance for the city council's consideration defining and addressing specifically nuisance parties, whether associated with a STR or any other residential property in the city. The ordinance defines nuisance parties as a gathering of 5 or more people on a residential property that result in any of the following activities: unlawful sale, furnishing, possession, or consumption of alcoholic beverages, unlawful or use or possession of marijuana or any drug or controlled substances, any activity that would constitute a violation of any of the provisions of section 215.111 of the Michigan Municipal Code pertaining to disturbing the peace, conduct which constitutes assault and battery, property damage, or discharging firearms. The ordinance prohibits anyone that owns or is domiciled at a residence to permit such a party to occur. It also requires that those present at such a party, but not living or staying at the residence, leave upon the order of any law enforcement officer. This ordinance should provide additional enforcement powers to the police to address issues with large gatherings that become a nuisance, as well as help to limit the potential impacts of any STRs. Mayor, I move the city council approve the ordinance providing a new section 215.113 to Article 6 of Chapter 215 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mission, Kansas, prohibiting a nuisance party.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment on this item? Yes, Joe.
My issue with this, Joe Donaway, my issue with this particular piece of legislation is, again, the potential that it could be misused for graduation parties, game day parties, any sort of those sorts of events. Not saying that I want things like that to get out of hand, but there's a high probability and possibility of abuse of this particular piece of legislation. It sounds like if there is a suspected unlawful use of, say, alcohol at a graduation party, for example, that could be dispersed. But is there a probable cause that has to be reached by that point? That's not really addressed within this legislation. And when I asked about it, it seemed that Mr. Scott was only able to reread the legislation as it was printed, and there is no reachable limit of proof, such as probable cause, reasonable articulable suspicion, any of that within the legislation. So how do we know when a gathering event will be shut down? And secondly, how is this going to be, is it possible that this could be used to shut down any sort of political activity, political party, political gathering, people gathering to participate in any sort of protected first speech activity? Can this legislation be used against that? Those are my main worries, because there's nothing within the legislation that protects against those items. Thank you.
Right. Do we have any other public comment on this issue? Seeing none, any council comments or questions? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Josie.
Aye.
Loudon. Aye. Schmidt.
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Hayden Chompozy.
Aye.
Ryard.
Aye.
Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Pring. Aye. Motion carries.
All right, we do not have any unfinished business this evening, so we will move into our new business. We do have one item of new business, which is a resolution establishing a 5-year funding commitment for the Johnson County Homeless Services Center. Laura, can you please provide a report about this item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As you'll recall, at our August 7th Community Development Committee meeting, we had Chairman Kelly, Johnson County Board of County Commissioners, along with representatives from Restart. who made a presentation about the proposal that is currently working its way through the City of Lenexus Planning Commission and the City of Lenexus City Council related to the conversion of the existing hotel at 95th and I-35 and the restaurant on the out parcel to a homeless services center. I think the council, prior to that presentation, Mayor Flora had submitted a number of questions to Chairman Kelly in regards to process. And I think many of those were addressed, at least it appeared to the council's satisfaction during that presentation. And as well, there were a number of questions that were posed, particularly what happens in this funding proposal if some of the larger cities and larger contributors to that do not sort of align or agree to participate in the direct response that was provided, was that would be the responsibility of Restart to make up those funding gaps should those occur. Since the Community Development Committee meeting, you may have seen some information in the news media that the special use permit is actually proceeding to Lenexus Planning Commission, I believe, next Monday. Lenexus City staff will be recommending denial of that special use application. But until it is formally heard by the Planning Commission and the City Council and works its way all the way through the process, really the final status of that project is unknown. Based on kind of the direction that we took from the council coming out of that committee meeting, we did want to continue to demonstrate our support for that. As you'll recall, the funding was on a per capita basis over that 5-year period, starting at about $7,600 and increasing by 2 cents each year. So we have prepared a resolution, which is before you for consideration, establishing a 5-year funding commitment. Again, all of this is contingent upon approval of the special use permit by the Lenexus Planning Commission and the City Council. And what we have done, just to sort of reiterate and reaffirm our funding commitment, is to pledge to encumber in our annual budget those following per capita amounts, so that this resolution limits that opportunity should something change from what you heard at the last presentation about the county or Restart coming back and looking for additional funding. And if the project is approved, there would be a formal memorandum of understanding that would be entered into between the city and I believe probably UCS, who will be managing the funding. And again, we made this resolution the commitment contingent upon approval of that special use permit. So happy to answer any additional questions, but I think this is reflective of the feedback that we heard at the August committee meeting.
Okay, do we have any public comments on this topic? Yes, Dale and Kim?
So my name is Dale Weathered again, Mission, Kansas. I've actually been in communication with Mary Reichert and Leah Loudon about this particular issue, voicing my support directly to them. I wanted to come and affirmatively state this as well and share just a couple of moments from my life that I think make me very intensely supportive of this. Through various circumstances, I was homeless from the time I was 16 until I was 18. I found myself at one point desperate, broken, and hopeless, sitting at the base of a cliff in California, trying to decide if I was going to walk into the waves or walk up to the bluff and step off. Fortunately, circumstances intervened and I did not, take either of those actions. As a result, I did start on the path and later was helped by people who had no need or purpose to help me other than their generosity to get off of the streets, which set me on the route to becoming the successful businessman and contributing member of our community I am here today. But on that route, there were bumps, including one period about 15 years ago where I was in a transitional state. I had some health issues. I had a loss of employment that was protracted because of economic downturn. As a result of those circumstances, I found myself within one $800 loan from a friend from being homeless once again. This county is the richest county in our metropolitan area. We not only can afford this, but I think we have an imperative to help those who, just as we would hope people would help us. And so I wanted to speak in favor of this resolution.
Thank you. Do we have any additional public comment? Yes, Kim?
Kim Donaway, Mission resident. I'm grateful that Laura brought up that they're going to put in provisions to protect our city residents and our city budget. However this plays out, I will still state that when Restart got involved with doing this project, they're going to fund it 100%. They are a very strong corporation. They really are. So I'm already paying taxes to the county and the city. And they talk about the homeless and where the cities and the county contribute to the unaffordability in Johnson County because it is way too high. All the different players involved are creating the issues of homelessness, and that's tragic. Yet they got Commissioner Kelly got federal dollars, so they could buy that land. Nothing came out. I didn't see Lenexa contributing to it. I don't know if the county's contributing to it, but they put their hands out expecting all the cities, and we are a very small city and we are very tight on our funds. So my expectation is they're huge. They've got it. They don't need 30%. And that's and we do need shelters. We need more conversations instead of just, oh, let's just throw more money at slap a Band-Aid on the problem. We really need to start addressing what's creating the problem. Way too high mill levies from every party involved. That's part of the property tax, which then the insurance companies. When I have a rental house without any control go up $400 a month, and I have tenants call out, we can't afford that. Well, if I don't pay it, I have choices. I got to rein in the checkbook, and I expect my city to do that, and the county and the school district, or I'm forced to sell it, or I can go into bankruptcy or have a foreclosure on it. That's reality. I have no choice because of what the city, the county, the schools, fire department, library, and the parks, and then the insurance industry did. $400 a month I had to tell that tenant. And that is a fact. So angry, absolutely. Because the comment I get from people is, I can't afford it. And I tell the renters I've been educating, trying to get them to come and voice. I actually went over to KC Tenant's office yesterday. Thank you, because I was so angry asking them to come to these meetings. They're 42% of the voting block.
Right. Do we have any other public comments on this topic? Seeing none, I would open it up for council discussion. Do you have any council comments or questions? Yeah.
Just, I've worked with Restart in the past, and I'm currently looking at their 2022 financial reviews, and they look very good. Only 7% of their budget is used for administrative and general expenses. Development is 3%. The rest goes to permanent housing, 35%, 22% for their shelter, veterans programs, 18%, and youth, 15%. For a not-for-profit, those numbers are really good. So I too really support doing something about the homeless situation in Johnson County. I am really hopeful that this goes forward because we can no longer afford to pretend we don't see the homeless people that live all around us. And yes, there are situations that cause a lot of this. There's still 13% of Kansans who are uninsured. And I think many of us know that, health problems can cause havoc to our, our way of living. Housing is still way too expensive. Just the cost of living, if you have children, childcare is super expensive. And when you have a family who are spending more than 30% on housing, one unintended bill accident problem can cause people to lose their homes. I'm again disappointed that looks like to be a bump in the road, but I'm hoping that with enough public outcry and support from cities like ours, Lennox will find it in their heart to make this happen. And if not, I think that, we need to Climate Action KC, the whole homeless problem, come together and find a solution from all different perspectives, because we cannot just let this happen and pretend that we don't see it.
Brian, I think I saw your hand next.
Yeah, I hope I'm not going to steal Councilman Boltinghouse's thunder, but I did want to say that I agree with what you said last time, that there is no one magic bullet. I think that the council here or our city can have to solve the issue, but it's a collection of a lot of the things that we do. Pushing for the affordable housing as part of the lanes development, some of the services that we provide lower income families, and then options like this. That said, I think individually they still have a burden of proof that they are successful at what they do. And that's why I was so really very pleased to hear the presenter last time talk about that 90% success rate for placing the unhoused in stable permanent housing. And I think that really is what got me excited about the project, is that it accomplishes the goal of reducing the number of homeless.
Trent, did you have your hand up as well?
Yeah, I'm just echoing a little bit of Brian's comments, voices that criticize public incentives, for example, on development. Earlier tonight, we heard from Banks Floodman talking about how that project is going to have 60% AMI for 20 years for 20% of those units being affordable housing. That's an example of where, had it not been for something like that, we wouldn't be able to have an affordable housing piece that is potentially an option that might help move the needle, that might help somebody who is facing a moment of distress be able to live in a place that is affordable. I just wanted to I appreciate Brian bringing up some of my comments from last time about that. I think we are looking at this as kind of everything being interconnected and one size fits all, and there is no magic bullet, but we are attempting to try things and look at what benefits are available to the city. And so the other thing I wanted to say was I'd like to thank Mr. Weathered for sharing his story. I think that was pretty courageous of you for voicing that tonight. I appreciate your perspective. Glad he's a former constituent of mine as well. So glad to see him here tonight and, voicing his experience really helps inform us. So again, it's complicated. It's a difficult issue, but I do think that, some of the things we do as it relates to all these agenda items tonight was a great example where you can see how some of this kind of all plays together to potentially, move the ball forward just a little bit. And again, we're not saying that this is the final, this is going to be the end all be all. This is going to be the magic bullet, as Brian said, but just things that chip away and continue to, help the problem become a little more attainable.
Yep, Debbie. Oh, Debbie the Mary.
I apologize. I was in Alaska when you guys were discussing this. I'd like to know, and these are probably elements that have been discussed, if not on paper. It's more than a stationary place. It is access to transportation. It is access to grocery store. I mean, there's a whole realm of subsidiaries that support that one facility. So I would just ask that when we move forward, whatever cities go forward and wherever we do this placement, that we look at all those bus options and grocery stores and places, that they could have employment there. So sometimes way out on I-35, I don't know what the bus route is out there, and it may be great right now, but we need to look at those little subsidiary things that support the whole.
Yeah, and I think just for a point of clarification, very briefly, This would be not a drop-off shelter or an overnight shelter of any kind. This is the shortest stay, as I understood the presentation that was made earlier this month, would be 60 to 90 days, with a certain portion of the units being dedicated to up to 24 months for transitional housing. So the goal of this services center is really to bring clients in through the 4 intake portals that currently exist in the county, to be able to then make sure that if they are being served at this center with all of the wraparound services, that they are looking at all of those factors that you might mention. So employment, access to transportation, access to grocery, other sort of amenities. And I think that's where this 90% success rate in getting people placed in stable housing. So this is not an overnight transitional center. This is absolutely more of a residential piece where people are again, they don't have to leave this campus to get mental health support, sort of the financial support, counseling, all of those services are right there and available to them.
Yeah, Mary?
I also just wanted to thank Mr. Weathered for coming and sharing his story. I think in vulnerability, there's real change. So it's important to continue sharing those pieces. But I am disappointed to hear that Lenexa is recommending denial of this. I'm curious to hear the reasoning behind it. I'm eager to, just kind of wrap my head around all of that. You know, I think it's a collective problem across the entire United States, and it's the least that Michigan can do to put a small amount towards it every year, like we've kind of all said, to chip away at it. And hopefully kind of work together as a county, as a state, as a country to work on these and help out these folks. So that's all.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think it was mentioned last time when we had our presenters here that, you know, originally I had many process concerns with this. And I think, you know, I would have liked to have seen it done differently and to see cities engaged earlier on in the process. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, it is about the stories and about the people that we're trying to help. And so putting, you know, the substance over that and trying to make intermittent steps to improve the problem, you know, rather than getting caught up in the nitty gritty. But here you have the county partnering, and you have Restart, which has a demonstrated record of success in this area. You know, I think looking at making a difference at the end of the day. Any other council comments? Not, I would entertain a motion.
I think Leah, you should take it.
I can take this one. Mayor, I move the city council approve the resolution outlining the city of Mission's 5-year funding commitment for a homeless services center located in Lenexa, Kansas, to be operated by Restart.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any final comments? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Carpenter Davis. Aye. Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Ryard.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Josie.
Aye.
Loudon.
Aye.
Hayden Chompozy.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. There being no further business items for consideration, we will move into comments from our city council. This is an opportunity for comments from any of our council members. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share this month? All right. No hands, a rarity. So we will move into our council committee liaison reports. These reports allow the entire governing body to stay up to date with the various activities of our boards, commissions, and committees. So first we have council members Boltinghouse and Loudon for sustainability.
All right, I'll take this one. So there is a collaboration between the Sustainability Commission and PRT, the Parks and Rec and Tree Commission. They're doing a tree drive. It's up and running. I love the name of it. It's Tree Yourself, which is a lot of fun. That just cracks me up every time.
Rec.
Yeah. So there's a flyer out there. PRT had a booth at the Mission Market. You have a choice between Eastern Redbud, Swamp White Oak, Serviceberry, and Black Cherry. There's a page on the website for people to donate to the tree drive. Or they can purchase a tree through there as well. Pickup is on September 21st. And people can buy a tree at a good price or donate money to plant a tree somewhere in the city. And we're just kind of, looking for ways to promote this program. Let's see. There's also, we talked about the tree protection ordinance that we had talked about during our meeting. There's a community of all ages is reframing ages for elected officials and city staff training. I believe that you, Justin, had sent out a link to that so that we can all look at that. The environmental fair is coming up soon, which is very exciting. Anyone know the date off the top of their head?
September 14th.
Yep, there you go. Lots of
Good
new,
job, everybody.
new companies are coming in. The EPA actually contacted Terry to see if they could be part of it. All 9 cities are sponsoring, and over 15 new companies have come and asked to be a part of it. So that is very exciting. Looks like that is it. Do you remember anything else that I missed?
I think you covered it all.
I took some notes because my brain doesn't retain stuff for very long, it seems these days. It's age, I'm sure.
All right, thanks. Thank you. Next, our council members Kring and Schmidt for the Parks, Recreation and Tree Commission.
We had an opportunity as the Parks and Rec group to meet at Waterworks Park on Monday, August 12th. And we got to see the connection between Waterworks Park and the new Rushton. And the Rushton Elementary kids will have such a benefit to have this park revitalized and at their discretion. So the connection was really good. We talked about the tree issue and the sustainability concepts with that. And this is a vibrant group, this Parks and Rec group. They are really on task and ready to make the city a much better place and move forward. And Penn's direction is keeping us going too. Thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, just a couple of reminders of some upcoming dates. We've got the 25th year anniversary celebration for the Powell Center, the week of September 9th through the 13th, which is culminated by the aforementioned environmental fair on September 14th. And then just a reminder that the community center will be closing for some maintenance starting on 8/19.
All right.
Oh,
yeah. You want to come up?
So again, Dale Weathered, I want to thank Penn and his team for the Waterworks Park. My 5-year-old pit bull loves that park. And so very good job. Just an observation that I gave to Penn during the grand opening of that is communication. So for example, a lot of us in the neighborhood, we did not know when the grand opening was going to be because we were looking on the Parks and Recs planning page, not looking at the calendar. And so we just encourage to remember that there are multi-vectors and that when we're communicating out about things, that we are using a more diverse strategy for that.
I'd like to add on to that too, because Kim brought up a good point. She was at the Sustainability Commission meeting, and let's not forget the paper flyers in downtown businesses. Not everybody's online, and sometimes that's, old school way is a good way to still keep people in the loop.
All right, next we'll hear an update from council members Freihard and Chosi on the Mission Magazine editorial board.
We didn't meet last month.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll have
Fast
a meeting
update.
in September.
Yeah, September 18th.
All right. And next then Councilmember Carpenter Davis with Family Adoption Committee.
There's a survey being developed for the social workers so we can get some gainful input so we can look at the program. And our next committee meeting is September 5th.
All right. Next up, we have my report with our appointments. And I did see our potential appointee here in the audience tonight, making it through one of our longest meetings of the year. So tonight I put before you the appointment of Alexa Root for the Sustainability Commission with a term expiring December 31st, 2024. Alexa, I don't know if you want to briefly say anything since you stuck it out this whole time.
Hello, it's nice to meet all of you guys. I think the main thing I just wanted to say is that I'm very passionate about sustainability and moving forward our built environment. And my main thing is that I'm just here to listen to all of you guys and your experiences, because I graduated college from K-State in 2023, and I'm new to all of this. So I'm here to listen to all of you guys, and I'm excited. So thank you so much for this possible chance.
But you do have a couple of impressive qualifications
was gonna
related to
say,
buildings in
yes.
particular,
Could you
right?
share
Do you wanna
those,
share
please?
those for the group?
Yeah, so I am a lead GA associate, which with USGBC, and I'm also a Green Globe emerging professional. So within the last year, I've been focusing on trying to get buildings certified towards environmental and health and wellness for the buildings around us. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to talk your ear off.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion on Alexa's appointment?
Mayor, I move the city council uphold the appointment of Alexa Root to the Sustainability Commission with a term expiring December 31st, 2024.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further council discussion? Yeah, Brian?
It's just, I'm pretty close with the chair on the, and she's very excited.
Oh, yeah.
All right, any further comments? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Ryan.
Aye.
Loudon. Aye. Boltinghouse.
Aye.
Hayden Chomposi.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Josie.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thanks, Alexa. And
you
hopefully,
so
hopefully none of the Sustainability Commission meetings will be quite this long. You never know. All right, we will move into our city administrator's report. Laura, do you have anything you'd like to share with the council tonight?
I will ask Mr. Carroll to share the July interim financials, and then I just have a couple of.
All right.
I will just real quick, if you go to the sales tax page, we talked about the issue last month with the disbursement that didn't come through. It did come through that time, so we are caught back up. So those numbers are looking good. So that all ended up washing out the way it was supposed to.
Great. Anything further? Nope. Okay, we do have the need for an executive session. Oh, Laura, sorry.
Just a couple of quick things. Just a reminder that we, tomorrow and next Thursday will be the last two mission markets for the season. We'll also be closing out the 10th anniversary season. Thanks to all of our market coordinators and everybody who makes that happen. We know that's a great event for our community. I did want to kind of follow up on Ms. Donaway's question or comment about the Mission Magazine. So that is funded with transient guest tax revenues, which is paid exclusive. Those are exclusively collected on the rental or the over hotels, the Woodspring suites that we have. And so we consciously made a decision really from the outset of the magazine. We limit the advertising to our mission businesses or those who serve like the library system or others who maybe serve a larger area, but we don't allow a Roland Park, a Prairie Village, a Merriam business to advertise in our magazine. And that was a very conscious decision to drive people to our mission businesses. We try to keep those advertising rates very affordable. And so what we wanted to do was go to carrier routes immediately sort of adjoining, mail carrier routes adjoining the city of Mission in an effort to encourage and entice those folks to come shop in Mission. So it is really a support of our local businesses. Councilmember Schmidt touched on the closure of the PCC, which started on Monday and will last through September 2nd. Lots of work going on over there. It's always a beehive of activity. And then I would just like to, the next time I think we will see the mayor, we'll have one more resident of the city of Mission, Kansas. So we wish you all the best and we'll look forward to welcoming her in the coming weeks. And that's all I have this evening. And I don't think Robin had any business updates. Okay. Oh, yeah. Debbie?
Make one comment. I went through the budget when I first got my packet. I went through it again this afternoon. I don't know of a city this size or any across the country that could compete with Laura Smith and this financial. I mean, I had things down to a fine science. I couldn't believe how comprehensive it is. And I do have one quick question.
Yeah.
Can you give me some background or some updates on where we are on the bridge inventory? And because it looks like we're not going to be doing anything relative to any changes until 2026. And I just need to understand, I'm real funny about these bridges being evaluated and kind of looked at for safety issues.
So we do the bridge inventory it's a biannual, so every other year, and it's odd numbered years. So we conducted an inventory in 2023. The bridges that are in, we don't have anything that is in really serious condition that needs to be addressed immediately. And the bridges for us, oftentimes we don't think of them as bridges. We think of them as culverts over the road. The two I believe that are in the worst condition, I will look to Director Boyce, are probably Reeds and Outlook. And I believe definitely Reeds. Those will be replaced as a part of the stormwater channel project that is coming up in 2026. So we do keep an eye on that. So we have the condition rating from 2023. We will get another condition rating again next year when we do that bridge inventory process.
Okay, when you say by worst, I mean, if we're looking at an extra load coming in on a truck, how does that make me feel safe? What's the rating of that bridge?
I am not going to, probably either one of us can speak very intelligently without having that report and report, and we can reshare that and kind of try to answer those questions more specifically.
And then we may have a different course of action if that rating has gone up since 2023, up being worse. Or down, whichever rating.
Whichever way
the
it goes,
scale
yes,
is.
yes. Let me pull that and we'll kind of see, because I think what we shared in 2023 is we shared the comparison of how the bridges changed from 2021 to 2023. We would do that similarly when we do the inventory in 25.
Thank you.
All right. We do have the need for an executive session this evening, so the governing body will adjourn to the executive session for the allotted time. When that time has expired, the governing body will reconvene to do one of the following. One, extend the time required for discussion and return to executive session, or two, continue with our city council meeting. As a reminder to the public, the governing body may take no binding action in an executive session. I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move the city council recess to executive session in accordance with KSA 75-4319 B2 and B6 for consultation with an attorney and preliminary discussions relating to the acquisition of real property. Also attending the executive session will be City Attorney Dave Martin, City Attorney John Gilkirk. Will resume in the council chambers at 10:01 PM in 20 minutes.
So
Can I have a second?
do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Oh, we do have to do a roll call. Okay, sorry, Robin, please call the roll.
Adjournment. I'm so sorry, y'all. Ryard.
Aye.
Loudon.
Aye.
Boltinghouse.
Yay.
Hayden.
Aye.
I wondered who it was going to be. Hayden Champosi.
Aye.
Kring.
Aye.
Josie.
Aye.
Schmitz.
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, Robin's over there keeping me honest.
Oh, no. Well, I've got 17 more motions.
We'll tell you where to put those motions.
I moved trustee Sweet. Whatever.
Town center is probably the only one.
We'll just go to work from here.
Okay, are we all back? It is 10:01 PM and we are returning from executive session to continue our city council meeting. So before we adjourn tonight, I want to share with the public that the video from this meeting will be available through a link on our website at missionks.org. There being no further business tonight, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Okay.